Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful day here at Double G Streams. Today, yes, we will be talking all about hockey. It will be all sports, no gameplay for video games, for those of you who are normally here for that. Joining us today is our special guest, Cam. He's a good friend of ours, also very knowledgeable in hockey. Rivals Tune. So this should probably be a very good discussion, and way more in-depth than it was in our previous episode. So, guys, how do you feel about the second round so far?
I'll tell you what, Colorado going down was the shocker to me. They don't lose Grubauer, it's a different story.
Fair enough.
Boston going down, and Tuukka Rask doesn't leave, that's a different story.
So a wilder ride than you expected.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that.
Cam, your feelings?
Me personally, I just absolutely hate Philadelphia, so I was jumping for joy last night.
I was rooting for that too.
Sorry, Slow, that you lost your bet for $10, man, because they couldn't score a single goal.
Oof. Well, all right then. So, with that, there were 4 pairings in the second round during these semifinals. We'll be starting off with the East. And the shortest series of them all, Tampa Bay versus Boston. Tampa Bay won it 4-1 in the series. Cam, let's start with you. What are some of the highlights from that series? Like, what really stood out and made you feel that Tampa Bay is going to have a good thing going forward into the conference finals?
Oh, I would definitely have to say it's Victor Hedman is going. You get a top 5 defenseman in the league now all of a sudden scoring the way he is going and playing defense for 30 minutes. The guy wasn't supposed to be healthy. And now all of a sudden the guy is out there and shutting down your number one pairing, and he shut down David Pastrnak. Now, there's things out there saying that Pastrnak wasn't healthy and things like that. I just found out that he had COVID because he was partying overseas. I mean, that could have been something. But when you shut down Boston's top pairing, that is just saying something. And going into the future of the New York Islanders, of when they play them, he's not even going to have to play that much in the defensive end. He's just going to be more lethal going forward. Now, as for the rest of the Lightning, their legs should have been tired from that 5 overtimes against Columbus, and they are just so deep with Brandon Coleman, Braden Point, and so forth, and going on without Stamkos, that they're my pick to win the cup. I mean, I'm not going to lie on that, but they're going to be getting rolling now, and I would expect when you get into with the Islanders that it's going to be a short series. I would say 5 games, but we will get to that, I'm sure, soon. Toon, I'm sure you have something else to elaborate on just Tampa Bay.
Well, I'll tell you what. I know Brad Marchand is Brad Marchand. You know, Patrice Bergeron is arguably one of the best centers in the game, but where's the rest of their depth scoring? David Krejci had a good series, but then where's Jake DeBrusk? Where's guys like Chris Wagner? You know, you got Andre Kasha, then he's absolutely invisible. I don't expect Zdeno Chara to play 30 minutes a night and be as good as he was back then, but he's still a good defenseman. Charlie McAvoy's not putting up numbers. Brandon Carlo is supposed to be their right-handed shutdown defenseman. What's going on there? Their defense moves the puck and no one's moving. I think it was game 3. They're getting blown out 7-1, 7-2. That's unheard of coming from a Boston standpoint. But I'll say it. Tampa Bay, their speed is unreal. Blake Coleman, Tampa Bay upgraded at the deadline. Boston didn't. There's no excuse for that.
Yeah, but you also got to realize that when you talk about the secondary scoring with Boston, it's their defense that normally creates that by getting the pressure in from the point and then putting on net, and then they get those ugly goals. That wasn't happening from the Wagners of the world. But the thing is, Torrey Krug's got to show up too.
Right.
And Torrey Krug, he's one of my favorite defensemen in the league, but he was not going. Charlie McAvoy, he had his moments. But yeah, they weren't producing. And when you lose Tuukka Rask like they did, it's like being stabbed in the back. I'm not faulting the guy for his child being born. But the thing is they're going to play differently completely throughout that series.
I agree with you.
If they have Rask. Because all of a sudden, the defensemen aren't going to pitch in because they know Halak's probably not going to make that two-on-one type save anymore.
I agree.
Just to clarify on the point, there is always a major difference when someone is there versus when someone is not there, no matter what the reasoning. Of course, that like you said, there's no blame. It's just a flat statement.
Yes, but when Boston wants to play you in games 2-1 and you're in a series against Tampa Bay in that speed, they're not going to be able to do it without Tuukka Rask. And to me, that was just that was the turning point with them.
I'll tell you what. One of the games, Nick Ritchie took 2 unnecessary penalties, possibly 3, and one of them was a 5-minute major. That can't happen. You traded for him to bring in a physical element. That's fine, but you can't take unnecessary penalties. You can't hit a guy that's 20 feet away from the puck and not think you're going to not get called for it. That's a 5-minute major easy. Earlier in the period, he hits Blake Coleman to the boards.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think like the refs aren't going to call it. They're right next to you. That hand's going to go up every time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be disciplined. I get you want to play hard-nosed hockey, but you got to be smart about it. Use your hip and go into them. That way it's not a dirty hit. It's an unfortunate accident, but
let me ask you this. Do you think Boston was completely outclassed? Or do you think it was literally pretty much just Tampa Bay speed that won them that series?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, losing to Tuukka Rask changes their entire style of defense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're getting out of Tuukka Rask. If Yaroslav Halak was a decade younger, I'd say, okay, different
Pittsburgh
story.
Penguins, 2010.
Different story. I will say that now. But the man is in his mid to late 30s. He's not the same Yaroslav Halak that shut down the Penguins back in 2009, 2010.
No.
Boston's defense has to be smarter. They can't do as much. I agree with that. But their forwards. It can't just be the same 4 guys being Bergeron, Marchand, Krejci. Pastrnak's the one you noted on it. Where's he been? That's 48 goals in the regular season, and he's got nothing in the playoffs to show for it. Great, you scored against the Hurricanes, but now you got Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are in the same alignment. You're going to see them 4 times a season. You're going to roast them at some point. This is the time for you to do it.
And that was the whole thing. These 2 teams should have known how to play each other because they are in that same division. And it looked like it was just an out-of-class division like how they used to do with the 1, 2, 3 division winners, and you had the 4, 5 type thing. You didn't know who you were going to play. Boston, they didn't play their game. They didn't. And honestly, I had a love-hate relationship with Zdeno Chara, and it broke my heart to see him go out the way that he had to.
I'll tell you what, though, and this is the thing that caught my eye. Tampa beat Boston, no problem without Stamkos.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a healthy Stamkos back, Tampa Bay is not going to be fun to play against.
Oh, no. And that's the whole thing. Stamkos needs to come back, I feel like, for them to win the Cup. I mean, they're already deep, and this is without this guy. I mean, it's like having...
You get a guy back...
We're homers, so I'll say the Penguins. It's like when the Penguins don't have Crosby, Malkin. Oh, just wait till this guy comes back. This guy comes back.
It's equivalent to getting a guy at the trade deadline. That's literally what that is.
Yeah, and if he comes back and he's playing yours, he may even end up playing their 3rd line the way it's going, or even 4th line minutes. That's type thing just to get him to come back.
That is a 50-goal scorer on the 4th line.
But I'll tell you this, too. I'm calling him out in a sense that you're supposed to be back in May with this injury because it happened the last day before the COVID pandemic hit and everything was shut down. What is going on with him?
Unless you re-aggravated your injury, and we're not talking about Nick Bukestad getting a sports hernia at home because Nick Bukestad has always been a piece of glass. But Stamkos, he's starting to become that piece of glass. An 8.5 cap hit, and he's on the sidelines. If Tampa loses, I'm curious to see does he get moved.
I think you'd have to move on for him, and it'd be like just move him and just get the draft pick so you could just have the 8.5 to literally sign the rest of your team that you're going to have to be paying. I don't think you could trust the guy anymore. And again, I don't believe he even made it up to training camp relatively. I believe that he
started it and then he got hurt again and he tried to come back and it didn't work. I'll tell you what, one of the quietest trades that occurred a couple seasons ago when they got Ryan McDonough. That solidified the left side of their D. Oh boy.
I was huge on him, but I'll raise you on this one. Tampa Bay was smart and they did what our home team, the Penguins, should have done, and they went and signed Shattenkirk for dirt cheap. You talk about a deep team. We complain about Jack Johnson, but we could have had Shattenkirk for like $2 million, I think.
He runs the second power play unit for the Penguins and plays bottom 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Right-handed defenseman. I'll tell you what, though, and I know this came out of nowhere, but that John Marino trade, right now I take Marino over the Shattenkirk signing. Don't get me wrong. Will I like Shattenkirk at that price? Absolutely, because I know what I'm going to get out of him.
All right, guys. Any closing comments on this series, the Tampa Bay versus Boston? The tops, the bottoms of it?
Tampa Bay is not going to be fun to play against if they get a healthy Stamkos. They're not fun to play against now, but the Islanders are different from Boston. Barry Trotz is arguably the best coach in hockey. That team is not going to be fun to go up against. but I think Barry Trotz is going to have a plan up his sleeve. He does. That's how Washington won their cup a couple seasons ago. That was the only reason why Washington won.
So you're expecting a very good matchup. I thought like maybe a full 7 or something, but maybe we'll get to that in a bit.
Right.
Cam, any closing comments on that Tampa Bay Boston?
On the Tampa Bay Boston, I wish that we would have seen Tuukka in that one because I was really excited for that series, and I feel like as a fan we got robbed of a Stanley Cup type.
I agree with
matchup.
That series goes 7 easy.
Mm-hmm. And yet it only went 5. So that'll cover it for Tampa Bay versus Boston. Now let's move on to the other half of the East in the semifinals, where it was the New York Islanders versus Philadelphia Flyers. And that series went to the Islanders out of the full 7, 4-3. Toon, let's start off with you this time. How do you feel about that matchup? What were some of the top plays, the top stats that you want to make note of?
Travis Konecny, Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier. In that series, you had to combine 3 goals. Matt Martin, fourth line forward for the Islanders, has 4 alone. That can't happen. That's 3 of your top 6 forwards for the Flyers. What is going on with that top 6? That is your captain, one of your youngest players, their version of Gensel. Sean Couturier is one of the best two-way centers in hockey. He's going to put up 75, 80 points. They can't disappear. The only thing I could think of is if one of Couturier, Drew, or Konecny got hurt. But I'll say it. Yes, Barry Trotz's system, it stifles everybody. But I will also tell you, your leaders got to be your leaders. Your best players got to be your best players during these times. And for me with Philly, there's no leadership on that team or in that locker room. You don't have the guys that know how to get it done. I don't believe there's anyone on that team that's won a cup other than Niskanen. He can't play when it's like Chris Letang can, for example. And Carter Hart, he's a very good goalie. There is no doubt about that. But there's still holes on that Philly defense. Shane Gostisbehere, a couple seasons ago, he broke out putting up points. Now he's on the bench. Can't happen. Their depth scoring. Jake Voracek had a good series. But then after him, who else showed up? Scott Lawton, maybe? I don't know who else is on that team that I can think of off the top of my head. But, yeah, that was Kevin Hayes was good. But, I mean, they had 3 good centers down the middle,
Or Philadelphia, they had it. They had the team. It's just literally they ran into Barry Trotz in that defensive system because if you have 6 guys that can just shut you down and play matchups with you, it's going to be very difficult to just overcome. Philadelphia, I love it. Trust me, that Philadelphia came back from a 3-1 deficit being in games to lose in Game 7. But Couturier wasn't healthy. Giroux wasn't producing, and I think that had to deal with Couturier not being healthy also. But the whole thing is this was Philly's year. It really was because they're going to have to start signing some of these young guys and figure out how we're going to make a move. And whether or not Giroux's getting older and things like that, he is pretty much the heart and soul of that team. And it's just not going to come true for him. He's going to have to go somewhere else. They're going to have to move on from him just because they're going to have these particular guys to sign. Right. Provenov, I mean, I think
he's a tremendous defenseman. I agree with you there. He's their best defenseman in my opinion. He's their most important player next to Couturier. Those two are their most important players.
Did they give him a contract?
I believe so. I believe so.
And so it's basically they're just waiting on Hart. But the thing is at some point in time when you have these particular older players and they're just not getting it done, you have to move on from them. The Islanders weren't the better team in this series. They had the better coach. But the thing is the Islanders literally on offense, it's Matt Barzal try to produce, and then if not, let's just have our defensemen put the shots on and be accountable and try to get the ugly goals. And Philadelphia played right into their trap. This is that one time, or not the one time, but this is one of those times when the better team just played down to the competition.
And I agree with you. The Islanders don't have like a Crosby or Malkin. You have Matt Barzal, as you noted, and Anders Lee riding shotgun with him. But who else on that team is going to put up 30, 35 goals? Brock Nelson will get you maybe 20 if you're lucky. Bavilio will get you about 20. But Eberle's too inconsistent. Josh Bailey has 17 points, he's not a bad player. Don't get me wrong, but when he outproduces Giroux and Konecny combined, that says something right there. Mm-hmm. That is the thing I look at.
But like you said about the Islanders and their fourth line and things like that, they do have the best third and fourth line, arguably in hockey, with the way that they are built.
I agree.
They beat the crap out of you in those boards. And sometimes that goes without saying on why matchups are decided. If you know you're going to be getting into those boards and battling for a loose puck and you're going to get banged minute after minute, shift after shift, it's going to dwell on you. And I feel like the Flyers did. They got a little slowed down from that, and they had a tough matchup with Montreal before that because Montreal was going to beat the crap out of you too. But the thing about
that was a surprise.
The Montreal and the Islander series is they play similar styles. You would have thought that they would have figured it out after the Montreal and you struggled. Okay, we need to do this, and this is what's working. They didn't. Yep. They're like, okay, we're just going to keep on playing our style of offense and things like that. And never took into account that the Islanders were going to continue to shut down their...
that fourth line changes everything when it comes to a hockey game. There's no doubt about it. Clutterbuck, Zizekas, and Matt Martin, they changed the game. It's unreal.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you have they have a 3-2 lead, and they're coming out, they're doing their job. They're going to make you turn the puck over. That's what the Islanders system is. They make you turn the puck over. They're going to rush you. They're not giving you a chance to do anything. You're going to turn the puck over, or they're going to take it right off you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Semyon Varlamov's not a bad goalie, but Carter Hart's the better of the two.
Mm-hmm. Philadelphia was better than them in every aspect. If you look on the paper, and I'm a big paper guy, guys. Like, honestly, I believe that you could look at a team and be like, yeah, they're going to be contenders, and this is what should happen. But when you run into a Barry Trotz system, but you literally had to pre-test against Montreal, there's just no reason for it. Absolutely no reason. And as a Penguin fan, I could not be happier about them losing, especially after coming back from 3-1. I cannot stress that enough, guys.
Now we can say because of last year.
Brotherly love.
Now we can say because of last year. Now we can say, oh, well, Barry Trotz isn't kidding around, and that Islanders team isn't kidding around. They are that good. Getting John Gabriel Pajot was probably the quietest trade that's actually benefited them. That has probably been the smartest trade I've seen.
Yeah, without a doubt. But as Philadelphia, as the Islanders go up against Tampa Bay, I'm willing to bet that Tampa Bay has it figured out and this series is over within 5. I don't think the Islanders' offense will be able to continue to put up on Vasilevsky because Tampa Bay is not going to fall for that trap, and they were faster than what Philadelphia is, and they have a lot more scoring. I think it's going to be a very short series there, and knock on wood that somehow Stamkos gets to come back for the Stanley Cup because I do want to see him.
If Stamkos comes back, it's over in 6. If he does not come back, which I've heard rumors that he is not coming back at all this series, it's going 7.
I'll do a shot bet with you that it's 5 games, Tampa Bay.
Okay.
All right. And to further your point, when you were saying about that the Tampa Bay would be, watching the Islanders and studying up on them, they've had the 2 extra games that because Tampa Bay only played in 5 games, the Islanders had to go the full 7 games. That's 2 extra games of Tampa Bay getting to watch their footage.
Tampa Bay was off for a full week, so that gives them a chance to rest, practice a little bit, keep in shape, and study film.
They needed it. Hedman's banged up. Doesn't matter. He is banged up. But those legs had to be tired. You got to remember that
game against Columbus. I'll tell you that is 8 periods of hockey. Oh, that was interesting.
I apologize, guys. I was on vacation last week, and I'm not completely up to date on everything that happened with every single matchup. I watched on my phone and read a lot. However,
everyone's got their life to live.
Didn't Tampa Bay go to like a 3 overtime game again this particular series too?
Yep, and I'll tell you what. That's why I keep saying, if Boston has Tuukka Rask, and here's where I would say, going back to that series real quickly, if Boston benches Nick Ritchie, because in the last 3 games of the regular season, he didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in for against Carolina, takes an obnoxious penalty. He's scratched the rest of the series. So obviously there's a trend here. Comes in for game 3 or 4 it is, where they're losing 7-2. He's taking penalties. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is where I'm saying, like, as you said, Tampa's speed is going to kill you, but then on top of a team taking an obnoxious penalty, it's going to cost you. And that's just not in playoffs. It could be in regular season. It could be in preseason.
Let me ask you this. Who do you hold more accountable when that kind of situation happens? Do you hold on the head coach, or do you hold it on the captain of like Zdeno Chara to literally tell this kid, listen, we got away with it this time. Do not make this happen again. Who do you hold accountable in that?
Chara could have pulled him aside in the locker room and said, hey, here's what we need you to focus on. But the head coach makes the final decision. So that's on Bruce Cassidy. Okay. He's a nominee for the Jack Adams Award over Sullivan, who had half a roster. Let's get this out of the way now. Mike Sullivan should have been in discussion for it, but now watching the playoffs, do either one of them deserve to be in contention for it? Bruce Cassidy's first line kills everyone in hockey. Let's be for real. But now they're not doing anything. They're hitting the golf course. I know Sullivan and the Penguins didn't do much either, but I'll tell you what. For Boston winning the President's Trophy, and they're out in the second round.
And the 4 seed.
That was the other clincher. They got a top 4 seed, so they had 2 decent matchups. Like Carolina, I figured Carolina might give them a little bit of trouble, but to knock them out 4-0, that was that.
But you know what's funny? How we just talked about Philadelphia should have known how to play against the Islanders. Boston should have known how to play against Tampa Bay because Carolina is equally as fast as Boston. They're not as deep 1 through 4 lines and things like that. But Carolina is just equally as fast, and they just did not show up. Again, you know how I feel about Tuukka, and I feel like Tuukka was the person that changed it. I understood why he went, but Boston themselves should have been more. Their legs should have been more equipped to deal with that kind of speed.
They see each other 4 times a season. There's no excuse for that. You might see them more come preseason. I understand not everyone will see ice time in preseason, but you're seeing them 2-2 home and away. So you're going to see the Penguins will see the Flyers or the Capitals 2-2 regular season. You're going to know what these guys are, Yeah.
So either way, the teams that both lost were both very physical teams and teams that should have known better. Interesting on that. Quite the correlation. Well, any closing comments or jeers at the Flyers you want to give before we move on to topic?
Matt Niskanen goes from the Capitals to the Flyers, makes it 1 round further, and then loses. There's no change on that team. And as for Giroux, Couturier, Konecny, you got to score more than 3 goals in that series against the Islanders. You guys are getting paid big bucks, especially Giroux with that $8 million cap hit. That can't happen. You got to put up points. You got to see in your jersey. You're supposed to be their best player, one of their most important players. You can't disappear. That is not the time for you to randomly just take a vacation. You got to find ways to get goals. I don't care how dirty they are. They don't have to be fancy, but you got to score goals. You're paid to do that. Jake Voracek had a good series. Lawton was actually very surprising. Couturier, I think, got hurt, which is unfortunate. If he stays healthy, the Islanders might lose. It might not be 4-0 in Game 7, but I think it's going to be a different score. But
the worst thing that could have happened in that particular game was Philadelphia going down 2-0. That's as simple as it is. You had to play the Islanders game. It's hard to keep on running uphill. Eventually, your legs are going to get tired, and you're just going to succumb.
I'm going to add a note onto your comment. The games Philly came back, and all 3 games they won, they were all in overtime. Yeah, you're going to get the momentum, but then you're going to run out of gas.
Yep.
Because the Islanders are beating you in regulation, so they're fine.
Yep. They played right into the Islanders' game plan. They for sure did. In Philadelphia, it's not that I hate you guys. I'm just still angry that you guys towed my car when I was there.
Ooh. Well, if there's any reason to hate a hockey team, that might be one. Visit their town and get towed. I wouldn't want to go back either. Or speak very nicely of them. But all right, that's going to conclude it for the matchups that occurred for the Eastern Conference. Now we're going to take a bit of an intermission before going over to the West. Let's discuss that draft. And Toon, I think you mentioned earlier that you have a very particular bone to pick about how this 2021 draft was conducted.
First off, this playoff format is so silly. There's no excuse for any team that makes the playoffs to end up with the first overall pick unless it was via trade. And at this point, there were no trades made for a team to get the first. Now, when I watched the draft, the gentleman who's unloading the suitcase, holding the ping pong balls, he drops the New York Rangers ping pong ball into the machine by accident, and that's the one that randomly pops up, and the Rangers get a Frenier. Like that, I'm not going to say that's a little, sly, but I get it. But I will say,
I mean, Bettman is an NBA guy. He's all about the ratings and the money. So,
right. But I'll say it.
The conspiracy, I get it too. I completely get it. I'm going to disagree with you respectfully.
That's fine.
I just love hearing that. I just do. It's always funny to me. I just feel that you need a lottery. You do need a lottery. And the fact that a team that finished 15th, like the Penguins type thing, had a chance to get the first overall. But the fact of the matter is that's the way it's set up. And it's just the way the cards are dealt. Like, they did percentages. That's just, they need to go to, if you finish in the top 5, at least 3 of you guys are going to have a pick in the top 5.
Right.
Type thing. This way, it starts watering it down a little bit that these teams that are sandbagging, it doesn't always work either, guys. I mean, remember Alexander Degg? Just because you get the first pick does not mean anything.
Hugh Jessamine for the Rangers, 2003.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, but it just gives you a head start of someone in Lafreniere, from what everybody's saying, he's going to be a big name in the league. But I was also real high on Capo Caco and things like that. But that's for another time. The whole thing about it is they just need to have the certain teams be able to stay in there, not just the first team can't get worse than 3rd,
Right.
and then the second team can't get worse than 5th. They need to just average it out at that point. I agree that a team that finished 15th or 14th, 13th,
that could qualify for the playoffs.
You're still almost a playoff team.
Right.
And it's Montreal's fault, though, for winning that series. But you shouldn't have a chance at just the number 1.
That's why, correct me if I'm wrong, in football, the team with the worst record gets the first overall. I mean, I understand your point of sandbagging because then teams are going to try and tank. Maybe they should do something where the teams that you know aren't going to make the playoffs, when they're eliminated from playoff contention, if you start winning games, the highest percentage, they get the first overall because then you're actually playing for something. You can't purposely sandbag or you can't purposely tank.
It had an incentive there. That sounds like a great idea.
I actually don't hate that kind of idea in a sense. The sandbagging is the issue. I know this is hockey talk. I want the NFL to go to a lottery. And I'm not saying it has to be every single team in order.
Right.
To me, if you finish in the top five below, you should have a chance. And then after that, go into order.
No, I'm fine with that too.
Because, again, this is a hockey talk. I'll just touch on this real quick. Miami did it last year. They started trading all their players and everything to gain a bunch of draft picks and early picks. Jacksonville's doing it again. It's a new trend.
Yep.
And
they're trying to rebuild a lot faster, and they're going to do it.
That's how you do it with draft picks, and you're not guaranteeing anything with the draft pick.
Absolutely.
And I'm okay with the lottery. I just feel like it needs to just have a little bit more fairness with how the lottery goes.
On the same
because poor Detroit did not deserve to get boned like they did.
Again. I don't know if you know this. They got 4th.
I would not.
They had the worst record. They had a percentage of .286.
Yeah.
And they got the 4th overall.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird.
And it's not even them trying to sandbag.
They've
just been smart with they've been collectively smart with who they were signing and how they were going about it. But they weren't trading Matt Duchene for like Ottawa did and getting a first round pick. They were just that bad. But it's because they're trying to build a young nucleus, see what they have, and then go forth. That's a type of team that still deserves a top 3. But then again, it doesn't matter. You're not guaranteed full out.
Right.
Who they get at 4 could be the next Kyle McCarr or Quinn Hughes. And I guarantee that most people would say, I'll take that player first overall in most drafts.
Detroit got a wild card. Steve Yzerman coming back and being the GM of that team.
That
is going to turn them around.
I'm an Avalanche fan, and I believe that rivalry is still real with the Red Wings, but I'm excited. I'm a huge Yzerman guy. I'm excited to see what he does. I think if you're a Detroit guy, give him about 5 years to really get this team in order, and I think you guys are going to have another 15 years of just greatness coming.
I like Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Matha. The back end is what worries me, but I think Dennis Klosky will be the guy that ends up running the show on the back end. Philip Sedin is the wild card for that.
Have you done any research on any of the prospects that are in this year's draft? Like, I'm just curious on any knowledge. Because I'm a huge believer that, and you need to build a spine. You need to have 2 good centermen, a defenseman, and a goaltender. The thing about the Red Wings is they have good offensive players that are young. If there's a goalie that they could get, and I don't know if there's a Fleury, Luongo, Price type goalie, but if they can get the goalie and build with them at that age, then all of a sudden when they're 26, 27 years old, you're really going to have a team to build. That team is going to need a goalie before anything.
I agree with you. That is the one thing I thought about, and I'll say the first guy that comes to my mind is Robin Leonard. He's a free agent. Unless Vegas is going to dump Fleury, you do him in after 2 years possibly.
I think that's a bullet point all on its own.
I was going to say something else, but I'll wait till we move on.
That's fine by me, too.
All right.
Okay, then. Okay. Well, that'll conclude the topic for the draft. We'll finally be moving further west into that conference, starting off with the Vegas Golden Knights versus Vancouver. That went 6 games with Vegas taking it 4-2 in the series.
Oh, 1-7.
Oh, sorry, 1-7.
Oh,
you're
it was
right.
written here as 2. So they won 4-3?
Yep.
Cool.
I was going to say, like, I know I was following on my phone close enough for that.
Yeah, they pretty much all went 7 except Tampa Bay.
Uh-huh.
Now that sounds familiar. And I'm not even that much of the hockey guy. I'm like the fair weather fan. These guys are your statistical experts who know every name.
We're your analysts for this. This will be.
And that's why they're the analysts.
You guys should see. You guys should see the text message too, and I have throughout a week. It's so comical, but the thing is, we're somehow spot on. I don't know how it happens.
Well, that's because you guys just
It also helps that we always get into arguments with others, and there's never a reply.
So Vegas won 4-3. It did go full 7 games in that series. Sure, everyone's tired of always going to 7, but you got to play to win. They played it. They got their 4. So Vegas, Vancouver. Tell me more about that series.
Go ahead, Toon. You can start this one off. I'll go off.
I'll tell you what, Vancouver's speed. Those kids are good.
Mm-hmm.
Elias Peterson, Bo Horvat. Bo Horvat showed up in the first round. That kid is the real deal. I liked him when the Canucks traded Corey Schneider for him, being the 9th overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
He's blossomed into that role as the captain. He's taken over that role, leadership-wise. I like the JT Miller acquisition. Thatcher Demko coming in, giving them chances to win. They make it to 7. The only goal he gives up, he's got 4 guys screening him.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a thing you can do, and it's on the power play. There's just not a thing you can do. Overall, that series I did not think was going to go 7, but I will say both teams played great. Just one shot, and 4 guys are screening him.
Mm-hmm.
That kid did everything right. And Markstrom had a very good season. But again, this playoff format is so silly. They're going back to rotating goalies.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
tell you what, I felt bad for the hometown guy, JT Miller.
Yeah,
in that because he's the one that took the penalty and he was beat. He had to take it, guys. Like I said, I was on vacation. That was legit the only game I got to watch was that Game 7.
He was on the ice a little too long, and
he got beat, and it could have been a goal. I don't blame him. But the thing is, I felt so bad for him. And then when they scored the empty netter to make it 2-0, you saw him take his stick, and he wanted to go right over that post.
And he did.
But I will tell you this. The Canucks really earned their marbles this playoff series. They're going to win a cup, I think, within the next 2 to 3 years. And
that team is scary.
I would not hate anybody if they ended up betting $20 for them to win the cup at the odds that you're going to get. That team is young, fast. Fast is the way to go in today's NHL. But their defense is actually very good already. The whole question is, and Toon asked me, what do you do at Markstrom next year? Well, Toon, I'll tell you exactly what you do. You keep both of them. And the reason you keep both of them, you let them battle it out. I'm not sold on Demko yet. The guy had 2 games. He went 98 shots, 98 straight saves before giving out something. But the thing is it's like taking out the starting pitcher and putting in a relief. The relief pitchers in baseball, oftentimes you hit less than 100 against them the first time through. The second time through, a lot of times relief pitchers, they go and they hit over 300. It's because you have a feel of them. It was only a matter of time. Vegas was the better team.
I agree.
And Vegas can play 4 lines however they want. They're that skilled because they have that many different role players. However, we talked about Vancouver's speed. My whole thing is Vancouver's so fast, they played right into Vegas, just wanted to trap the whole time. I turned it on in the third period with 13 minutes left, and they only had 8 shots. 8 shots!
That reminded me of the Philly Islanders game the other night. Philly had 12 shots going into the third, maybe less than that. They ended up with 16.
That's the thing that's scary. And I had to pull out my phone because I still get angry with Vegas about July. And that's who I kept on wanting to say. And that's who I keep on thinking their head coach is. It's not. It's DeBoer. I'll tell you what. It gets me so freaking angry because I texted my cousins. And I'm like, how the heck is Vegas going to go with Lehner after he just gave up, was it 4 or 5 goals in Game 6? I'm like, how are you not going to give it to Fleury? Fleury has not lost his playoffs yet. And Fleury has played outstanding. Lehner, to me, is the question mark. You said something about Lehner and the Red Wings. I think whoever signs him, it's a mistake. And if Vegas wants to move on for him, please do it. Because I would love to see Fleury go to another contender and still earn his stripes because that guy can still play. And he's not being given his fair shot. And because of that, I don't want to see DeBoer just come in and win the Stanley Cup with this team. I don't.
Mark Madden made a joke about possibly Fleury coming back to town. I'm like, Mark, that would have happened. If that would have happened, we would have never gotten rid of him. We would have traded as you said a couple of years ago.
I think that's a whole topic in its own right when it comes to...
me and you've talked about that in the past. And again, guys, Toon and I normally are not wrong when it comes to things. Toon and I were one of the few people in Pittsburgh that wanted to keep Fleury and trade Murray. Again, Altio saying it's a conversation for another time. I respect that. I respect your time.
Okay, that. So I want to see you guys go in depth on it, but right now,
but I'm not gonna
in relation with Fleury. In relation with Fleury towards the Penguins, that'll be its own thing. But you're saying Fleury's still good.
I believe Fleury should be the starter on this team, and I think he got screwed over a little bit, big time. I don't think Lehner's that good. Again, we talked about Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz makes goaltenders a lot of the time, and it's because of his system. Lehner wasn't able to do anything in Chicago when he was there. That's why they traded him, and they were lucky enough to get a second-round pick for the guy. Lehner, to me, is not playing that well for Vegas, and I believe that he's just getting lucky right now more than anything, and he's lucky. We'll talk about this in a little bit, too, with Colorado. I think, and Dallas can light him up, but he's been lucky on his matchups that he's had. I would not be surprised in this series coming up with Dallas if Lehner has a little bit more of a short leash because...
Oh, that series is going 7. Dallas could put the puck in the net. And Ben Bishop hasn't played that much for Dallas.
That will be something we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Anton Godovin's been the starter as of late. That's been the shocker.
But I think the whole shocker, we know Vegas is good. I think the shocker is how good Vancouver's already gotten. If you notice with those players that Toon named, he didn't even mention Elias Pettersson.
Oh, yes, I did. That was the first guy I mentioned. I said
him,
Horvat, and Besser were the first 3 I said.
I don't know how I missed them. I apologize, guys. I was so excited to jump on Toon on that one.
I'll tell you what, the wild card for that team, and this was an off-season acquisition, getting JT Miller. He meshes well with Bo Horvat on that second line. That has been...
Oh, JT Miller's
He's a very good player.
He's a great player. But I think having Tyler Myers with Quinn Hughes is just as big. You're letting Quinn Hughes play how he wants to play, and it is showing up.
They got 4 centers that can roll right down the middle. And Brandon Sutter's your third-line center. And we had him in Pittsburgh.
I chuckled when I heard his name the other day.
I'll tell you what.
He's that type of guy that he'll score those dirty goals for you.
I'll tell you what. I didn't like the guy when he's in Washington, but Jay Beagle wins a lot of faceoffs right when you need him to. That is a guy that the Penguins could use. I would have taken him for faceoffs.
Tim, what does winning faceoffs mean?
That is actually important. If you're in the defensive zone...
No, I'm asking why. Why is it important?
Explain to the viewers.
You're winning faceoffs. If you're in your own zone, you got to win the faceoff. If you don't, and the opposing team wins it, it's a shot on goal. Possibly that the opposing team's scoring on you.
Possession is everything, guys, especially in hockey to even start. That's why a person like Jay Beagle, and that's why, to me, and I'll go back to the Pens...
Jordan
been 15
Stahl
years. It's not even Stahl. We were rumored. It was right actually when Chicago started winning theirs. It was when they went and signed John Madden. Because John Madden was, to me, the greatest second-line center that you could relatively have. I know Claude Lemieux is great, but the guy just won face-offs. Just won face-offs, and that's what matters. And that's why when Eric Stahl went to Minnesota a couple years ago, I was more than okay because the guy wins face-offs. Possession is huge when it comes to playoff hockey. And I do believe that was something that kept Vancouver alive. You were spot on.
Since we're talking about faceoffs, I'll tell you what. Carolina, I know they went out early. I know they weren't really in the discussion. They probably got the best coach for faceoffs. Rod Brindamore could win faceoffs like nobody's business. That is the guy. who you
Well,
want for forwards.
That's arguably why that they won it in, was it 03 with Carolina because of Francis and Brindamore? If you
06, 07, I believe.
was it that? Was
Because
it?
they beat Edmonton. Because there was the lockout when we got Crosby. And then they traded Pronger. Because he wasn't happy. So he loses in the finals. Then goes to Anaheim.
I thought it was a little bit longer than that now. But, I mean,
It's
Toon, you know a heck of a lot more, and you tend to be right when it comes to years like that. I just thought it was... I'm just showing my age, guys. I'm 31 now, and I just feel like it was so long ago type thing.
I mean,
And when you say 06, I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I was still a virgin.
I'll tell you what. Since we're talking about faceoffs, could you imagine if the Penguins drafted Jonathan Toews over Jordan Staal back in 06? You got Malkin, Crosby, and Jonathan Toews?
That's who I wanted us to draft, and I said Jonathan Toews at that time. No. And the reason I wanted Jonathan Toews at that time was because he played a center and a left wing. And I felt like, you know what, if you get a guy that can play left wing and center, that gives you interchangeables that you just don't see. And if you're a hockey guy and you want to learn about prospects, and this is how I learned about Jonathan Toews, as I called him back then, watch the World Juniors and everything. That's where you find players. That's when you fall in love with guys, and that's where I saw him, and that's when I was like, that's who I want the Pens to get. I was really high, and don't get me wrong, I loved Stahl and everything, but I wish we would have. I wanted us to draft Toews so freaking bad, man.
To add on to your comment, you could put two centers out on that second line between Malkin and Toews.
Mm-hmm. One in offensive zone, one in defensive zone, and it would have worked out perfectly.
If one gets kicked out, you got the other.
All right, well, guys, closing comments on the Vegas versus Vancouver. You said that Vancouver earned their marbles, which means they're going to be a good team to watch going into next season, next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we also mentioned there's a number of face-offs won and puck possession, which will slowly, in small increments win you the series overall. Were there any other small nuances where Vegas kind of edged out Vancouver with their experience?
I think they're def.
Yeah.
Alex Tuch being a 20-goal scorer on the third line is enough right there. That's a perfect example.
Yeah. Vegas is one of those special teams, and I can't think of a special team like them to, in my off quick thinking of how they just lines 1 through 4 and defensive lines 1 through 3, that it's just that balanced. And that's the thing. It's just balanced.
They remind you of the Islanders of the West. They don't give you a chance to do anything. They're on you right away. You don't move the puck, you're in trouble.
They can play 3 to 4 different styles, and it doesn't matter. Power play can look different every single time.
I definitely agree. That
team is it's just special the way it's built. And touche to McAfee or McPhee drafting the way he did in with the expansion draft.
You got all those assets. You trade them. You trade someone away, but you go get Mark Stone. You end up with
Mark Stone was huge, and so was Paul Stastny.
You got Marchessault in the.
They were able to add in, and again,
you got Marchessault for free in the expansion draft. Don't even forget that one.
And Carlson too. But the thing is they have players that can play so different personnels that it's such a tough matchup to play. And I already touched base on it. I feel like the goaltending is going to be their biggest question mark, and I'm not sold on Lehner. I'm just not.
I'll tell you what, you got 3 centers. William Karlsson's their best center.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul Stastny being a two-way center, that's a problem. That's going to drive Dallas nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Dallas has the depth to keep up with Vegas. I still think they have the firepower, don't get me wrong. But what happens with Bishop or Khudobin?
We'll touch base on that one on the next one.
Yeah. So that concludes it with the Vegas versus Vancouver. Now we'll be moving on to Dallas and Colorado, which went the full 7 games, with Dallas winning it 4-3. And of special note, this matchup with Colorado losing it ended up being an upset for both individuals here at the table, since they predicted Colorado to win in 6, if I recall.
Yep.
Guys, you're upset. Tell me more about it.
Philip Grubauer getting hurt changed the whole series. If he doesn't get hurt, Colorado wins that series. You go to your backup, who is inexperienced in the playoffs. He doesn't have a good outing. Michael Hutchinson comes in. He He's a veteran goalie, but he's not on the level of Grubauer. You lose Gabe Landeskog for Game 7, that hurts. I get it. No, but you have the forwards, but where's your depth scoring? It just can't be Kadri or Mika Rantanen. It can't be Gabe Landeskog. It can't be McKinnon. Where's Jonas Donskoy? Where's JT Confer? How many of these other where's Matt Nieto? Your third and fourth line guys got to show up and play sometime. They can't just disappear. Cale Makar, a very good talent. Any of their other defensemen though, you don't see them on the scoreboard. I understand. You'll see them maybe for defensive purposes on the score sheet, but you need points from your back end. You need points from your bottom six. At one point, I swear, I saw their bottom six only having 4 goals. That's a little scary.
Oh, yeah.
Dallas, that team was scoring up and down. No problem.
Guys, I just want to let you know, Alto's drawing me my next tattoo. It's not stick figures. But anyways, Toon, it's more on the lines of Colorado has to blame themselves more than anything. You mentioned Grubauer going down. That changed the series completely. But Dallas is playing with their backup, too. I don't care that they went to bench Ben Bishop and everything. Ben Bishop's the better guy. And Dallas, they would have lost it. They would have been scratching their heads and being like, maybe we should have went Ben Bishop, the guy that's been there and always seems to get passed over come to playoff time. A.K.A. when he was with Tampa Bay, and then went to Vasilevsky, and then when he was with the Kings, Jonathan Quick went over. For whatever reason, I guess the guy just isn't a playoff guy, but I believe he is. They benched him way too quickly. Didn't they bench him after those seeding games? Isn't that when they're like, we're going to Kabulin?
I think he got hurt, too. I mean, I could be mistaken, but if he got hurt by any means, I understand why they went with Khudobin. If he didn't get hurt and he had 3 bad outings, maybe 2-3 bad outings straight.
Could you imagine if Ben Bishop would have been healthy in that then? I guarantee that series could have been over in 5. Dallas earned their marbles too. Dallas is a young team. Jamie Benn's no young guy anymore, but Sagan's in his prime of his career. But they have just a deep team also, but with Miro Heiskanen's, he's one of my favorite players going right now, man.
He's a
I
good
love
player.
him. But the thing is, I feel like that series could have been over in 5 for Dallas had Bishop been healthy and McKinnon wasn't going off. And like you said, with the secondary scoring, you need to get that if you're Colorado. And Colorado only has themselves to blame with that, is because they just didn't show up enough. If you have a guy that is carrying you on his back like McKinnon, you owe it to him to show up. And they faltered. They faltered. They had it in the Game 7. And they had the matchups how they wanted it, and they just completely fell on their face relatively. You can't lose 5-4.
This reminds me of Carolina when Ron Francis was their GM. He was afraid to make big trades because he didn't want to hamper their rebuild or their retool.
Mm-hmm.
He got fired. Joe Sakic's honestly the same way. You got a haul for Matt Duchene a couple seasons ago. That's great. Mm-hmm. Now your team's exploding. This is back-to-back years of you guys losing Game 7s in the second round of the playoffs. Nathan McKinnon touched on it in his press conference. When does it stop?
Well, I believe that sometimes you need to change captaincy. And quite frankly, Landeskog didn't deserve the captaincy when he got it all those years ago. It deserves to be McKinnon. And I believe that McKinnon would carry more weight. And how we talked about Zdeno Chara and with Richie and slowing him down, I think McKinnon will get more pull than Landeskog. Quite frankly, I don't think Landeskog is that great of a player. I didn't think he deserved the captaincy again when he was that young. I think that they need to do a little bit of a move. And Sakic really hasn't hit on his players like everybody thinks. And his job should be getting reevaluated in a sense. When you're giving McKinnon, you know what McKinnon is. Every scout is telling you what to do with him. But the thing is, tell me who he actually drafted that you're like, oh yeah, that was a hard pick to make. I mean, Kel McCarr was taken 4th, but they needed a defenseman at that point. They knew that. That's why they traded Tyson Barrie. They knew that they had Kel McCarr in their back pocket at that point. They had it. He hasn't had to make a tough decision since he's pretty much got the job in. Quite frankly, I feel like Patrick Waugh was calling the shots relatively and is the one that set that team up.
I'll tell you what, if the Avalanche get another center equivalent to Nazem Kadri, that team will be even more frightening to play against.
Yeah, but it's a hard thing to do at this point.
I agree, but
they're starting to get up against the cap a little bit.
That's
You
why,
always got to factor that in. They're not the young team with a bunch of young guys like Vancouver is that they're going to be able to add in. And Vancouver got some steals. Colorado's paying their players a pretty penny, their top guys, and that's without paying Cale Makar so far.
McKinnon's contract is still $6.3 million. That's unreal. That's his cap hit. That's pretty darn good. Rantanen's is 6. I think Landeskog's is about 4 or 5.
Let me put it this way. I would pay Mikko and I would pay McKinnon definitely that amount and everything.
Right.
But those are about the only guys, and that's great value, and hopefully Colorado can build around them. I have a soft spot for Colorado. I've always loved them. They're one of my favorite childhood teams. I want to see them sustain success, but they need to really look themselves in the face and figure out, is Grubauer the guy? If not, they need to go and try to sign someone. We said we would touch it with Lehner at one point in time. Lehner's a guy that you could possibly bring in. I'm not sold on him. I like Grubauer. You can look at the Matt Murray. Goaltending is going to be something. They have that spine built right now. They just need to figure out what the goaltending situation is going to be. And I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if Grubauer would have stayed healthy, because I believe that it could have been over 5 over in 5 either way, being if Bishop was healthy going against this particular Colorado team, or if Grubauer was healthy. I think it was over in 5 for Colorado for the way the cards were dealt.
If Grubauer's a free agent and Colorado moves from him, what do you think of them getting Braden Holtby? If he
to me, Holtby should be the top guy that any team wants going into free agency this year. And if they get Holtby, I think if they got Holtby, I would say that they would be my favorite to actually win the Cup next year, because goaltending, it's like how we talk about Zadina with the captaincy. A goaltender is its own breed, but the thing is, he can make, it's like Tuukka, he can make that defense play better. He really can.
He gives them the confidence, so that they say, if you guys make a mistake, I got your back. Just all you got to do is move the puck. That's all I need you guys to do. Move the puck. And be smart with it. And
I think you were right too that Grubauer is a free agent out this year. So, and I think he was making about $4.5 million. So that could open it up for them to go and sign a bigger name goalie and make another push, because this team isn't going to go anywhere, but they do have some holes that need to be filled. I love Kadri on the third line, but I feel like they're one line dominated, and then they just have guys that can dwindle in, and
they need a third line center that can come in and possibly do what Kadri does, because he's on the second line, and I like him there. He's a very good fit. Colorado won that trade easy.
Oh, yeah.
Tyson Barrie is not that good of a defenseman.
No.
And
Toronto always get an offensive defenseman that can't play defense, and they wonder why every year. Why do we get eliminated? It's because you have defensemen that can't play defense, and then you want to blame Frederick Anderson. That's why. Let's go and pay our 3-star players on offense, and we don't have a defenseman or a spine with a goaltender that can sustain. I love it. I love hockey.
That team is in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
You don't pay 4 forwards over $7 million, and you have no defense. I like Morgan Riley, don't get me wrong. And Jake Muzzin was a great addition, but you don't have anyone else after those two.
Wouldn't you rather have Jake Garner over Jake Muzzin?
At that point back then, before they signed John Tavares, I would have traded everything for Drew Doughty. That might have put them over the top. He knows how to win, and then you get Muzzin with him. That was the pairing that won them cups against the Rangers, against the Devils. Why not?
Well, you know how I feel about Doughty.
I mean, right. I might be over exaggerating on Drew Doughty, but I'll tell you what: if you're moving, let's say you move Nylander plus for Doughty, you're not losing that much assets. You gain more cap, yeah, but like you still have Kadri, who's the heart and soul of that team. When you traded him away, you lost your heart and soul. Toronto has no passion to play.
And Kadri's doing that for Colorado. I thought that was a great signing that they did. I just feel like they need to look themselves in the mirror and really figure it out. And I honestly think changing captaincy will give them a big lift.
I think
because your voice does get stale unless you are a legendary player like Zdeno Chara. Your voice is going to get stale. I mean, look at what San Jose did. They couldn't get it done. And how many times did they trade captaincies?
There's Marleau, Thornton,
and
Pavelski. The closest they came was when Pavelski was the captain, and now he's in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Couture, and well, I know this is year 1, but Ugh, they didn't have a good season.
No.
No one.
San Jose, they're going to
They're-
be in dumps for a long time. But, yeah, Dallas, they have a lot of star players, and I believe that they can give Vegas the run. And
I agree with you.
I can't wait because Jamie Benn, to me, hasn't shown up yet. And
if he shows up, that series is going to be completely different.
you're not going to be able to shut down like they did with Vancouver. This Dallas team is...
They're going to find a way around it.
Yeah.
You might stifle the first line a little bit, but you're going to tell me you're going to go stifle Joe Pavelski in that second line all the time? Their third line can score too. I'll tell you what, they have arguably one of the best defensive defensemen. Esa Lindell, he and Heiskanen. That is one of the best pairs I've come across in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both in their mid-20s.
Yep.
And they're both cheap.
This Dallas team is going to be a tough out. I really feel like it because I felt like Colorado was going to the Cup. I really did until Grubauer went down. But the whole thing about Vegas is you have to ask yourselves, again, like how we said about Colorado and Grubauer, you got to ask yourself, do you really think Lehner is the guy?
I mean, that's
it's not because I love Fleury and I have the heart for him. It's literally, I just don't think Lehner is that good. And I think he got lucky against Vancouver. Yeah, he put up 2 shutouts and things like that, but look what he did. You are not going to be able to do that against Dallas. You will not escape it, and I guarantee you Dallas will have more than 13 shots in 47 minutes of hockey. I can guarantee you that. And
that's why I picked Vegas to win that series. The goaltending is going to be Fleury and Lehner. I like Khudobin. I don't think he's a bad backup, but I don't trust him starting.
Neither do I, and that's why
the wild card for me is if Bishop is still hurt. If he's hurt, Dallas is in trouble.
The thing is you can't, even if Bishop was hurt and he got healthy, you can't go away from him now.
Yep.
You can't do it. And I believe Vegas will win this series also, but if they don't, it's because Lehner wasn't able to hold up. And DeBoer would not go to Fleury. And I feel like it's going to be about 6 games. But I think if it goes to 7, I think Dallas will take that in 7. Because I want to see what Lehner does. And I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to it in the game 7 with the pressure on its line. Didn't Lehner make a ridiculous save in like the first period?
He robbed Brock Besser in the second.
I
if
thought
Besser scores, that game is a little different.
It was different. But imagine him having to make 3 or 4 saves within the 2 periods at that point in time versus just that one glorious chance.
I agree. I mean, I'll tell you, in this series, the 2 wild cards for me, Mark Stone, Jonathan Marchessault. If they start to score, oh boy. I mean, Jamie Benn's the wild card for me for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
He's been very quiet.
Well, who do you think is gonna who do you think's more likely to show up? Those 2 guys or Jamie Benn? Because
Marchessault and Stone, easy.
See, I think Jamie Benn's due. I firmly believe Jamie Benn.
I agree with you that
he's
he's due, but I'll tell you what, that's those 2 being on separate lines.
Mm-hmm.
They're obviously that's an extra player for Vancouver, but I'll say it. If I'm going to subtract one for a minute, let's say I subtract Stone because I think Mark Stone is better than Jonathan Marchessault. Between the 2, I think Marchessault shows up first. I do. Vegas' defense moves the puck like nobody's business. And that's the thing. They're fast on the puck. They're going to make you pay every time if you slow down.
And they will. But Jamie Benn, if he gets going, especially early, all of a sudden Vegas can find themselves in a 1-1 tie. And then if you have to play matchups against Dallas in games 3 and 4, Vegas could be down 3-1. I would not be surprised, and I know there's no fans, but matchups to me is the biggest difference maker in hockey, especially when you have that last change. You don't want Jamie Benn going. Jamie Benn can win you a series, and I believe this could be it.
I'll tell you what. Vegas is. I would say their best 4 players. Let's say it's William Karlsson, Mark Stone, Jonathan Marchessault. I'll say one of Riley Smith or Max Pacioretty. I don't know which one of them you think is better.
Pacioretty.
I would say Pacioretty. The only reason I would say Riley Smith is better because he kills penalties and Pacioretty doesn't. That means something to me because you're actually playing in a position. You're put in a position where you actually have to play defense. I'm not saying Pacioretty doesn't, but he doesn't kill penalties. With Dallas, my wild card for them, I know what Radulov is. We both know what he's doing. He had a really good series.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Seguin, he's Tyler Seguin. Jamie Benn, Joe Pavelski's the other wild card. If those two start to play a little better, I'm not saying Pavelski's played terrible. If he starts to heat up even more, as well as Jamie Benn, if you put one of Seguin or Benn on a line with Pavelski, so that way you're balancing out your lines a little more, that might be the turning point.
Well, Tim, you sort of said something about killing penalties, and one of the things that I love about Dallas is Jamie Benn's out there killing penalties.
Joe Pavelski does it too, and that is the thing I will say.
Don't be surprised if a shorthanded goal goes in and decides a game for Dallas.
I believe it.
And again, guys, I do like Vegas to win this series, but I would not be shocked to see Dallas win it in 7. I think that's the only way Dallas wins it is if it goes to 7. But that's a big if. Vegas is able to play multiple ways, and if they figure it out and they're knocked down in the series, it's over. I think if Dallas needs to win one of these 2 first games to have a chance.
So what you're saying is that Vegas won't have as much of an easy-looking Game 7 if it comes to it.
No, Vancouver has no experience in the Cup other than Beagle.
Right,
and that's what hurts them.
That's what killed them in that Game 7, yeah.
Like
they shut down that speed.
Like, Miller's been in the playoffs for a good bit. Beagle won a cup with Washington, but other than that, who else on that team has won a cup? Who else has that experience? That's like when the Penguins brought in Matt Cullen for a season. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a fourth-line center. He doesn't cost anything. Mm-hmm. Everyone called him Dad for a reason.
Called him Dad.
Dude,
interesting.
He killed the Capitals back-to-back playoffs. 2 shorthanded goals.
All right, then.
Now we're playing on that 06 Carolina team.
Oh, yeah.
All right, closing comments on that Dallas versus Colorado matchup. Would you kind of just give a quick recap of the lows that cost Colorado the series?
Grubauer getting hurt. If he stays healthy, that's an overtime. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Will I say it's 5-4? No, but that's definitely an overtime.
And
I firmly believe Grubauer doesn't go down. That
Colorado wins that series
in 5. I don't think it was a contest. Again, how we talk about making those timely saves and things like that. Grubauer makes them. Francois doesn't.
I mean, I think
Francois killed that team the next game when he gave up 5 goals or whatever it was. You didn't give the team confidence, and that's what a good goaltender does. It just gives you the confidence. You said that about Volpe. Grubauer going down is what killed him.
I will say this in total fairness to their backup, Joe Sakic. You're at the trade deadline. You should know, like, I got to upgrade my roster. You got to look at the holes you have.
The thing is about backup goaltenders at trade deadlines, they don't cost a lot for veteran guys.
And that's what I thought. Like, Michael Hutchins is not a bad goaltender, but can you get another one?
Tim, would you give up a second-round pick if you were a contender would you give up a second-round pick for a backup goaltender if you were a contender and he was going to be an unrestricted free agent at this year? Because I would. You can't put value on cups, and that's what good old GMJR always believes.
You also don't know if that pick is going to help you right now or if it's going to help you down the road. I mean, if you're trying to compete for the cup now, I don't mind making that trade, but
other teams are always going to get better, and it costs. This is one of those times, and it happens all the time, that a goaltender gets hurt in the playoffs and it just kills a team, and that's what happened. It arguably cost them the cup.
Yeah, well, stats change over time, and as you're saying about cups. Like they aren't the be all end all, but they still do mean something.
Grubauer won a cup.
In some small essence, would you say?
Grubauer won a cup with Washington before he got traded. I mean, that says something too.
And as you were saying about goalies, you could kind of almost compare them to being the drummer for a band. They keep the tempo going.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Well, all right then. That concludes it for all those semifinals. Now let's touch up a little bit on the conference finals. So we'll be moving on to the latest topic of the Tampa Bay versus the New York Islanders matchup that'll be coming up soon. In fact, does anybody know when the first games of these finals will be starting?
It starts this week sometime. I want to say if it's not tomorrow, it's Tuesday or Wednesday.
That would make sense because Labor Day is tomorrow, so they'll probably skip out on that.
Oh, they could work on Labor Day.
I mean, a lot of us have to anyways, but let's face it, we're pretty certain we know what's going to happen. They'll wait till Tuesday.
It started tonight.
Okay,
it's starting tonight right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
And guess what, dude?
What is
Dallas is up 1-0.
I knew it was coming.
Oh, it's my boy Klingberg.
He's a very good defenseman.
While you keep an eye on that, and we'll touch
And Jamie
back
Benn
on.
with a
An
assist,
assist.
buddy.
Oh, okay. That's he's on the
Sorry,
board. at least
I'm a
score one.
person, and this is my personality. I love kicking people when they're down. It's so much fun to me.
Well, hey, so there was some touch up on like the Vegas Dallas matchup just before switching topics, and while we were trying to talk about Dallas Colorado. So while you keep an eye on that, we'll check on that in a bit. That'll be very topical. It gives more time to pass while we talk about the Tampa Bay New York Islanders matchup. So what are some of the? Well, then again, they're both fast teams. They're going to be pretty much colliding at high speeds on a highway, a nice highway, so to speak. You were talking about some player wild cards in Vegas, Dallas. What are going to be some of the player wild cards in Tampa Bay, New York?
The Islanders' fourth line. That fourth line can turn a game around and a series around at any point.
Good old Kyle Clutterbuck.
Casey Zizekas, Matt Martin, they hit. They go to the dirty areas. They do what they need to do. They know their roles. They will turn a series around, whether it's with hits, whether it's they keep the pressure on you. They're going to make you miserable. There's no way around it. If you're Tampa Bay, you ignore that. Frustrate the Islanders. If you're going to do anything, I would dump the puck in high off the glass. Make sure you smash one of the defensemen in the corners. Make him turn the puck over. Take them out of their comfort zone. If you're the Islanders, do what you did to Philly. Do what you did to Washington. Shut down the neutral zone. Make sure Tampa can't pass. Shut down their speed.
And that's exactly what the Islanders are going to do, is literally just shut down the neutral zone, because that's the only way they have a chance in this series. And we said the same thing about Philadelphia and things like that. They've done it so far. Barry Trotz knows Washington and knows the ins and outs of that team, so he already had a head start. But the thing is with Philadelphia, they shut it down. Tampa Bay is going to be a different beast. I think the biggest key to that is going to be staying out of box for the Islanders. You have to stay out of the box, because if you give Tampa Bay a reason to score easily on the power play,
they're going to make you pay every day of the week.
And you go down. It's just like how we said, it's an uphill climb sometimes against the Islanders. If you go down 2-0 type thing, one goal is not so much, especially if it's early. But if you go down 2 against a team like Tampa Bay, it's over also. That team is going to be fast. They can play multiple ways. Hedman's back. But my biggest wild card for the Islanders, and he's not so much of a wild card, is can Barzal get going against Hedman? Because he's going to be out there at every single opportunity. He has to go, because I don't think that secondary scoring is going to be there for the Islanders. So my 2 wild cards for them, Barzal and stay out of the box. And it's going to be tough, because Tampa Bay is fast, and you're going to get beat to those loose pucks going to the net. So hopefully it's a garage league, and they'll swallow the whistle for the Islanders.
Barzal's going to see both McDonough, Cernak, and Hedman. He's going to see 3 out of those top 4 defensemen. That is not going to be fun. And Cernak's going to make him miserable. I guarantee it. He's going to ragdoll him at least once.
I could definitely believe that, too. But for Tampa Bay, I don't think they need a wild card to win this series. It's just more playing their game and just making sure they stick to it, and just try to get Stamkos back. That's the wild card for them, and that's the whole key to them winning the cup. I don't believe that. No, I do believe that they could still win the cup without Stamkos, but I believe that he's going to be a necessary guy if they were to go against Vegas. He's a necessary key guy. I don't think they're in a struggle. I think the magic runs out for these type of teams like the Islanders that love to play a neutral zone trap and hold their defense accountable, and they don't have top 6 scoring against teams like Tampa Bay. I think the magic's going to run out. I can't see Tampa Bay this series going longer than 5 and Tampa Bay just blowing this, because the longer you go against a team like the Islanders, the harder it's going to be to actually eliminate them.
I'd say Blake Coleman, Anthony Cirelli, and Alex Cora. They're the guys that I'm keeping an eye on.
Blake Coleman, to me, was the best trade acquisition any team did. No one realizes how good of a player he really is, because he could play on the top 1 to 2 lines if needed. He's not a guy you want there. But when you put him on the 3rd or 4th line, all of a sudden, you got a guy that can score, but is going to be defensive and reliable like no other. And he is going to be a difference maker, especially if they go to the Cup.
I agree.
And Killhorn, I just always overlook him. I love Johnson.
Tyler
Johnson to
Andre
me is
still
one
good.
of my favorite players that is on that team. Eisman was smart for signing him for the money that he did. as for a wild card for Tampa Bay, I don't think they're going to be needed. They're just going to have to know their role, to quote The Rock.
I'd say for them, they got to stay healthy. Vasilevsky still plays at a Vasilevsky level.
That's something that I always overlook, actually, is just staying healthy. And it just takes one bad luck, one slew foot. I mean, Makachuk, one of my favorite players. I don't believe it was dirty. But the whole thing is it happens. Unfortunately, injuries, it's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can't afford to lose like Kucherov or something like that. Something stupid. And it's amazing. We didn't talk about Kucherov at any point.
We didn't bring up Braden Point. Those are the two big guns. For the Islanders, you shut those two down. You make their depth players come at you. Because their depth players aren't going to frighten you as much as Point or Kucherov.
But how we talked about Jamie Benn needing to show up, Kucherov hasn't done much yet.
He's been relatively quiet.
He's been okay, but when he's on the ice, you know how when you watch a game or watch a team, you just notice him. Like, my guy's always Ovechkin. To me, Ovechkin's still the most dangerous guy out there type thing. I believe that he scares me every time he has the puck.
Oh, you know he's going to put it through the boards every day.
When Kucherov has the puck, he's not scaring me right now. I'm like, okay, let's see what he does. Like, he makes great passes, but his shot's not scaring me right now. It really isn't.
That's where they miss Stamkos.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, if you get Stamkos back, where do you put him? Do you separate him from Point and Kucherov and you move him down and you move a guy like Killhorn up to the top line and have him be the guy that goes into the corners like a Chris Kunitz? And then that way Stamkos gets second line minutes with like somebody like Cirelli and maybe Blake Coleman. And then that way you make him the biggest threat on that line.
Evaluate him if he comes back by your team needs of how you guys are playing. That's going to be the biggest thing. If Kucherov needs to get going, put him with Kucherov. If you think he can fit with Braden Point, go ahead. If you think that you just want him on the power play to possibly get things moving so you can have that Point guy up there, because that's where he normally plays,
right?
Then just do that and then put him on the fourth line and see if you can get just a fourth line guy going.
Right.
Relatively. No one says that he has to come back and play 20 minutes.
Right.
What I am stating is he can come back, and if he comes back and just plays 11 minutes and they're 11 fast minutes from a Steven Stamkos, that's better than anything.
It was like getting Crosby back in 2011 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
He played third line minutes for a bit and then eventually got top 6 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's what they will have to do with Stamkos, because clearly that foot is hurt. I do believe that he should be trying to play through it. He's a hockey player, and that's what hockey players do, is play through injuries. I mean, players have played through a torn ACL. Players have played through a torn ACL and things like that. It's about skating. I understand he may not be able to cut, or it's discomforting, and because he's making $8.5 million, they don't want to jeopardize his future with the team. But like we said with Colorado, if you have a chance to win the cup, it's the, what's the quote from Waterboy? It's the final game, can't hold anything back. And that's what I feel like Stamkos needs to do. And if he's able to come back and play, he should be back, especially at this juncture. If you fall behind, let's just say 2-1 to the Islanders in the series, he needs to be out there if possible.
I mean, he came back against Game 7 against Pittsburgh in 2015-16 in the playoffs. Yes. He only played 11 minutes and 7 seconds, but still he came back. That's, third, fourth line minutes. But still, I mean, they needed him there. It didn't turn out the way they wanted, but still, I mean, he shows up to play.
He does, and he was a big difference maker in that series.
I agree. That
even if they were short, that team was just immature at that point in time. They didn't know how to win. That's why the Pens were able to do it. However, Stamkos needs to be the leader. He needs to come back. He's your captain. Again, captain. I'm not in that locker room, but
the only guy that won.
I feel like they're protecting him. I feel like if Yzerman was there, I feel like Stamkos would be playing. I feel like Yzerman would have called him out. I could be wrong, and I apologize if anybody's like, well, he's hurt and things like that.
I mean, it varies on the severity of the injury, but I mean, I also say experience plays a role. I'm old school. Patrick Maroon won a cup last year with St. Louis. He's on the Lightning. He might be the only guy on that team that won a cup. He
was such a sneaky signing. I loved it.
I
didn't love it when they did because I'm a Penguin fan.
I wanted the Penguins to get him.
He's just a player that you love to have on those fourth lines. Those are the type of guys that win you a cup. Not signing Tanev for $3.5 million or $4.5 million, whatever it was. It's those fourth line guys that make the difference.
And speaking of the Penguins, we get to talk about them soon too, if I'm not mistaken. I'll tell you what, though. I wanted Patrick Maroon. I'm not going to lie to you about that on camera. I saw him like, he's still there. He just won a cup. That's a replacement for Chris. That's like a Chris Kunitz replacement.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to sit there and play with Malkin or Crosby and protect him, but you put him in that room. He just won a cup. He goes to the net.
When you can invest $4 million on a fourth line by just waiting until after all the big name signings are, and then you have these veteran guys that just want to play, will play cheap, that are younger, that's when you build a team and build a cup team.
That's why I like the Matt Cullen signing. Mm-hmm. I mean, people thought he was nuts. I say, guys want a cup. The guy's 36, 37. He wins faceoffs. He doesn't have to go out there and play 20 minutes a night. Just set him out there for 10 and kill penalties.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that's Tampa Bay realized it last year when they went and signed Chris Kunitz. Granted, it didn't work out the way that they wanted against Columbus, but it wasn't Kunitz's fault. He was shutting down teams on the fourth line. Those are the type of guys that every team sometimes does it, some teams don't. That's something how Edmonton hasn't figured that out yet. They'd rather pay Milan Lucic and make the trade the way they did. Or no, they traded him to Calgary. They went for James Neal. But they went and paid Milan Lucic instead of just sign the guy with grit.
Yep.
You sign those guys for cheap, and then you could build the rest of it. And
I mean, they had Patrick Maroon at one point. That's the scary part of this. I mean,
who didn't they have at this point? It's a train wreck.
I feel bad for the fans of Edmonton.
I don't.
The two best players in the world, and you have a GM that just doesn't know what he's doing. I mean,
here's my thing, and this goes back to even before I was born. But to me, that organization will always be cheap in my eyes. If you didn't want to pay Gretzky all those years ago, you deserve everything that's coming to you. And it still goes to this point. They have had every opportunity to do it. And again, guys, I reiterate the spine, which is literally just two centers, a defenseman, and a goaltender. You build upon that. Every time they had the early pick, and granted they weren't wrong with Taylor Hall and McDavid, Draisaitl, the way that they went it, but they had Nugent Hopkins, they had Eberle. They just drafted forwards. They never went and got a defenseman or a goaltender, and then they're like, oh, we have all this offensive power. But the thing is it's like Toronto. If you have all this offensive power, it doesn't matter because you're not going to be able to defend.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
They did it to themselves. When you traded Taylor Hall for Larson.
Oh, that was such a bad trade.
You did it to yourself in so many ways. If you weren't sold on a guy, trade the pick and get depth guys to go in. You didn't have to draft Yakupov.
You should have traded that first overall pick to get a defenseman. I mean, the other thing I thought about, I'm glad you brought up Yakupov for a minute. I wondered if they were going to trade a couple years ago, maybe Draisaitl in the fourth for Subban when he was actually back in Montreal. I didn't think that would have been a bad deal.
You know, Tim, Draisaitl to me is the best player in hockey right now. I know I've told it to you. To me, he is the best player in the world right now.
I agree.
I love everything about his two-way game and the way he handles the puck with the blade of his stick is just so sexy to me. The way he plays and the way he scores, he's lethal. How I said about Kucherov, to me, every time he has the puck, I feel like he can score or he's going to make a play. But the thing is
who does he play with? I mean, if he's not with McDavid, that means he's got like Alex Chason and James Neal.
He's doing better than what McDavid does, though. When
and McDavid has Nugent Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that says something. He's got the better winger.
All right, guys. So, any final notes or final statements you want to make up on the Tampa Bay New York Islanders matchup coming up here in these finals? And what is your prediction of the victor and in how many games?
Tampa's going to win in 7.
All right, well, I guess we'll start with Toon. He calls for Tampa.
Toon always has to get the first word in.
7 games.
He normally likes trying to get the last one, but he never gets it with me.
All right. Closing notes on that then.
You're the Islanders. You got to stay out of the box. You also have to find a way to shut down Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. You have to stay on the Tampa Bay defense. Make Victor Hedman invisible. Make Ryan McDonough invisible. Take those 4 players out of the equation. Not anyone else on that team is going to be that frightening. They don't have Stamkos. So really, if you take out those 4 players, you're left with Vasilevsky.
Okay. Well, then, Cam, your closing statements, the team you picked to win, and in how many games?
Tampa Bay will win in 5. I'm pretty sold on that, but I will tell you right now, Toon, the longer that series goes, the more I'm going to like the Islanders because they're going to tire Tampa Bay out and they're going to have to play. Because if it has to go longer, that means Tampa Bay is struggling to figure out that system.
That system and that structure is going to be a problem. It is definitely going to be a problem.
But I will always take a team that plays a system like the Islanders have in the Game 7.
Okay, like the long game, the long plan, the long haul.
Teams like that just score the ugly goals, and that's how they're decided in Game 7 because teams are always scared to lose. They'd rather just play defensive and not lose it than play their game. That's what happened to Vancouver, like we talked about.
Yeah.
That's what would happen, I think, in the Tampa Bay Islanders game. Neither team, it'll be a chess game.
Yeah.
And I think the Islanders would be more likely to score that ugly goal first than Tampa Bay. But I do like Tampa in 5 because I believe that they will have the Islanders figured out after 1 game.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. We have Toon picking Tampa Bay for 7 games, and Cam also picking Tampa Bay, but in 5 games instead. All right, so that only leaves the other conference finals matchup. Vegas versus Dallas. And, oh boy, also what a series that's going to be. So their game is actually playing right now. What is that score update?
It's 1-0 in the second. 4 minutes into the second. Just looked.
And who has that one?
Dallas.
Dallas.
So, Toon, is that changing your tune on this series?
Nope. Vegas' depth is going to be too much. And the goaltending, let's say Fleury and Bishop are on the same level. Leonard's better than Khudobin. There's no way around that. I'm not saying Khudobin is a bad goalie by means, but Robin Leonard is an upgrade over Anton Khudobin. If Bishop is still hurt, in the key phrase, if he's hurt, that means Dallas has to rely on their backup. At some point, that's not going to work. Like you have Marc-Andre Fleury sitting on the bench right now. Vegas, that is a gold mine. You've got a 3-time Cup
Tim,
winner.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yep. It's 2-0.
I wish you would take off the mask so I could see your face when you see that.
No, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, well.
Marc-Andre Fleury started game 1.
And he start okay.
So he started right now. But does that mean he's the guaranteed starter for the next game?
I have no idea, but what the hell is the board doing? I apologize for that mouth on that one. But that need to be emphasized.
That they're rotating
Double
just so that way.
double hockey sticks.
I agree, but I would say if anything with this format, you want to make sure both goalies get to go. They stay healthy and they stay good and fresh. It's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I understand that 14 save shutout yesterday or 2 days ago for Leonard. Don't get me wrong. He didn't see a lot of action. I agree with you there, but it's nice to have that backbone. You know, you have a 3-time Cup-winning goalie on your bench. Mm-hmm. That's a really good problem to have.
Oh, it's a great problem. Right now, like how I kept on saying that I expect Dallas to take it because I don't trust Robin Lehner, and all of a sudden, DeBoer's like, all of a sudden, Fleury's my guy. You don't start the guy game 1 if he's not your guy. I am absolutely just dumbfounded right now, but now I really like Vegas because I feel like Fleury gives that team that confidence over what Lehner does. Lehner is a wild card. I'm either going to shut you out or I'm going to give you up 5 goals. And then Fleury's like, I'm going to give up 2 or 3 goals probably game in, game out. As for Dallas, I believe that Jamie Benn has to get going, how I talked about it.
I agree with you. He's been very quiet these playoffs.
Bullen, I just don't think he'll be able to stand against Vegas.
No, I don't think. Khudobin's a good goalie, but he's not a starter anymore.
No.
He's always been a backup. And
I think against Vegas, that's just asking for trouble. And I expect it to go about 6 games to Vegas, whether or not Lehner or Fleury's in there. But I won't sleep on him. I hate to be that guy that's like, I'm very confident, but on this end, it's just one of those things that Dallas has a lot of great potential on that team, and it's a lot of what ifs if they get going against Vegas. Vegas to me is just a constant.
They're built series. Now, and That's what gives them the advantage. What I want to know is how many goals are going to be scored this series. These two can put the puck in the net.
So you're planning on a slugfest between these two.
Vegas has a 20 goal scorer in their third line.
I think it's going to be basically a Mike Tyson going out there in his prime, where Vegas is going to punch him in the mouth, and it's going to be over within a matter of 2 periods type thing in the game. However, if Dallas is going to jump up early on the Knights, it may go 12 rounds, man. It may go 7 at that point in time.
I'll give you
it's going to be interesting. This is the matchup that I'm going to be watching at home.
I'm going to be glued to it. Dallas's head coach, Rick Bowness, he's been in the league since 1975.
Has he won the cup?
Yes. He even coached while he was a player. I looked that up right before we started. That's what I was dumbfounded about. This guy's been in the league for 50 years.
Was he the Islanders?
He was with the Islanders at one point.
Okay.
I mean, that was the most surprising factor I came across. Because they were talking about him on the NHL Network and on NBC Sports. They're saying he's got that locker room calm. He's got them cool. They're not, panicking. So obviously something's going right in there. But I'll tell you what, that might have been the best thing that could happen. They get rid of Montgomery due to his alcohol abuse, and then they bring him in.
Hey, St. Louis did that with TJ Oshie, and look how that worked out.
I'll tell you what, I don't deny that. But I will say, 50 years and he coached and played at the same time. That's a feat.
That means he knows how to play on the fly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Hey, mind if I take a shot in the dark here? I'm not the knowledgeable one. That's what these two are here for. But from the sound of it, you're talking about how Vegas has that balance between all 4 lines, which means they have a consistency and probably also an adaptability that's quite fearsome.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, maybe Dallas is doing exactly what they need to do, because maybe they're going to have to win it in 4 to guarantee they can even win it. It might be the only way they'll have the chance to is if they can completely run over Vegas, blindside them before they can have a chance to react. Would you say anything about my assessment there?
I think that's exactly what they have to do, is try to strike early and make it uphill climb for Vegas, because if you have to play Vegas game, you don't stand a chance. The quote in Sacha Baron Cohen and Talladega Nights, I hope you like the dance because it's going to be a slow one. This isn't going to be quite that way, but if you have to play Vegas's game, just like with the Islanders, it's an uphill climb, and it's going to be a slow game. And the thing is Vegas will hit you on the counterattacks as you keep on going, like when Miro wants to pitch in.
Yep.
That's going to be one of the biggest questions. I was going to be asking you, how many quality minutes do you think a young guy like Miro can actually give for Dallas against Vegas?
I think he's going to get 20 to 22.
Quality minutes?
He's on the pairing with Esa Lindell. That's the top 4. I mean, that's not going to be easy to go against, because you're seeing either one line of Riley Smith, William Karlsson, and Jonathan Marchessault, or you're seeing Stastny, Stone, and Pacioretty. You're seeing any one of them 6 guys. I mean, if you're Dallas, you got to, like you said, you got to score 2 goals and get to your system right away, and you start frustrating Vegas. Make them take penalties. Take them out of their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Dallas has to stay out of the box. That's obviously one of the things. How we talked about Tampa Bay and they're lethal. Vegas can play or can throw at you multiple different types of formations on the power play. They could do an overload box. They could do an umbrella. They can pinch in. They could go with just 1 point guy and screen with 2, because they do that a lot. You never know what's coming at you with Vegas. It's not just like a Tampa Bay where you're going to have 2 guys up and then Kucherov's on this side floating around.
He's on the one side. Stamkos is on the half wall.
You can't read Vegas.
They move the puck too fast. They're power play units. They move the puck. If you're not ready and you lose the face-off, it's over. You're in trouble.
Again, guys, possession. It's one of those things. But Dallas will be able to counter that. When you have Joe Pavelski killing penalties, how we talked about, it's going to be an X factor. It's going to be special teams for sure with this series. As we talk about it, and I come to more of light on it, it's going to be special teams. It's going to be just doing the fundamentals right. But if Vegas goes up 1 or 2 goals in any game, I feel like it's relatively over. It's like it's like the Yankees with Garrett Cole, and then all of a sudden you have Zach Britton and Aroldis Chapman coming out. They're just going to close it. And
The sneaky wild card for me for Dallas, and I know the guy's not what he used to be. Don't get me wrong, but if Corey Berry can chip in some goals, he won a cup with Anaheim.
I always forget about Corey Perry.
He won a cup with Anaheim.
Like I remember I liked the signing. I was like, Dallas could be deadly.
That's a sneaky,
because that's a third line with him.
He's a sneaky player. He was always a 30 to 50 goal scorer, but if he chips in, because he won a cup, so did Seguin. That's two guys that know how to get it done. I know Seguin was a rookie when he won it, but still, a cup is a cup.
Cup is always a cup, and it's the ultimate X factor.
I mean,
you don't know until you get there of how much it takes to actually win it. And obviously, Toon and I have never won a Stanley Cup. We've done it in our video games, trust me. But
that's a whole different environment.
But it's just one of those things that every single analyst always talks about, having guys in that locker room that have been there, done that, and have won it.
And that's why we talk about Matt Cullen and guys like Chris Kunitz, Patrick Maroon.
They're irreplaceable. And Seguin has done it. And I guarantee that he's saying, let's do this for Joe. Let's do this for little Joe, guys. And Corey Perry's probably in there saying, this is what we're going to have to do, boys.
Him and Pavelski, they were rivals back with San Jose and Anaheim. Now how much do you think they're saying, let's put this aside and win the cup?
All right, then. So sounds like we've got a good bit about Vegas and Dallas out while they're currently playing their game 1 of their series. Now, I know, Cam, you said earlier Vegas in 6 games. Toon, anything you want to say about who's going to win and how many games?
Vegas in 7. Vegas, if they get on the power play, move the puck as fast as you can. Don't give Dallas a chance to get set up. That's all it takes.
Toon, why you always got to be so boring with your picks, man? Why can't you be like, Vegas in 4? Vegas in 5.
Well, it's hard to say Vegas in 4 when Dallas is already up 1-0.
That's true. Although they can come back.
They haven't built that wall yet. But
who did you say your upset was the last round?
I said Colorado, and when Grubauer got hurt, I was like, oh, man.
The dream had died.
Boston I saw losing. I didn't see it in 5. I said that was going to happen in 7.
All right, well, there's nothing left we can really talk about the playoffs except to let the games themselves occur. And right now, one of them's already going on. So if you love that hockey, go catch that game soon. In the meantime, if you don't like the Penguins, now's the perfect time to go watch that Vegas versus Dallas match, because now we're going to talk about our home team. We're going to talk about the Penguins, and we're going to talk about their offseason since they were already eliminated immediately from these playoffs. Sad, but it's going to happen sometimes, right?
You can't win them all?
Exactly. Can't win them all, but you might as well try.
Oh, you can win them all.
Fair point. I mean, when you have an undefeated
I'm a homer. In that regard, no, I'm just kidding with you guys.
I'm just saying, like, hey,
you're not wrong if it's sport, on video games. That's where I would say you're absolutely right.
In a different sport, like, say, the NFL, where you only have the 16 games plus the 3 after in postseason, then you could technically win them all. It gets a little bit harder to do it when you have 70 games plus postseason in something like hockey, and then like 100-something games plus postseason in baseball. So, but you're right. Someone could potentially win them all. All right, so for this offseason, let's talk about the first bullet point here. Those in charge, and even they might be in the hot seat. We're talking about the general manager, Jim Rutherford, and the head coach, Mike Sullivan. But let's tackle them one at a time, starting at the very top. Jim Rutherford. Even I, as a Fairweather fan, can say that he's made some real questionable trades in the middle of the season. How are you guys feeling about Jim Rutherford right now? And do you think he might get the axe? Do you think something could happen to him? Do you think he's being spoken to by Mr. Lemieux? Cam, start it off.
Oh, man, Tim. Me and you always have so much fun with this one. And I was okay with the moves that were made. He was like the one guy that I wasn't harping on after, even though he's made those questionable trades. This year he really didn't, other than I question. He loves to mess up the locker room chemistry, and he's done it way too many times now. The Zucker move was done early enough, and that was a move that you added. You didn't take anything away. However, you went and got a guy in Patrick Marleau, future Hall of Famer, but the thing is he wasn't needed. And the thing is he doesn't play the game of what the Pens are allegedly trying to do, and that's get faster. He's not fast. No, you got a guy that brought in leadership and things like that. But was that really actually going to be needed for this particular team? Now that it's all said and done and we got eliminated by Montreal, you could look at it in hindsight and be like, no, it wasn't. But the biggest questionable move that he made was you trade Oli Mata for Dominic Cahoon, and then you go and trade Dominic Cahoon, who was playing really good when he was healthy. He got unlucky with his injuries for Connor Sherry and Evan Rodriguez. I believe in Toon. I feel Toon will end up saying, I don't want to ruin what him and I say about Rutherford all the time and what he was turning this team into. I'm sure Toon will say it. But the thing is sometimes you get outdated. And I was talking to Toon a little while ago about it. He was handed this team, and he made the right moves to start. But ever since, and I'm not saying Botterill was the guy that was behind it, Bill Guerin, I guarantee, was helping it, but he's out of touch. And he just isn't making the right moves, and I've questioned every single move that he has made in the past 3 years. Yes, I believe Lemieux should be talking to him, and it's one of those things with Mike Sullivan that if this team does not start out right next year, he needs to go. He can't finish the season because he already traded the 15th overall pick. You remember the last time we traded the 15th overall pick? Do you want to take a guess on who that was, Toon?
That was Rob Klinkhammer and first for David Perron. That was a real... The only thing that turned out of that, you traded David Perron and Adam Clendenning for Carl Hagelin, and that somehow got you 2 cups. I mean, that's okay. Don't get me wrong. 2 cups is 2 cups. But...
Correct. And who was that first-round pick that was traded along in that? Do you have any idea?
No, but I'm going to facepalm myself the minute you tell me.
We talked about him multiple times tonight. This is your trivia question, guys. If you're typing it in, go ahead.
This is in 2014 into 15.
Yep.
Okay, so I know it wasn't Kapanen.
So this is a 14 to 15 time frame, just in case that didn't go over the microphone that well.
That has to... Can't be Kapanen, because we never brought up Kasperi Kapanen. No,
Nope.
Thank goodness.
Matt Barzal.
Yeah, that's when Boston had 3 firsts in a row.
So, you can't tell me that the 15th overall pick is not worthy of keeping at this point in time for Kasperi Kapanen, of a guy that you actually know what he is going to do. Kapanen, to me, is not a top 6 guy for what this team needs. You had a chance to go and just take the best player that you thought can fit this team. Kapanen's fast, yes. But the thing is what is he going to do if he's on that third line? Because we don't play that style. Malkin doesn't play that style that Kapanen wants to play. I don't think Cameron. Wow. I don't think Crosby really needs it. I'm questioning that particular pick. I was okay with him being here next year until he just did this. If you were going to do this, I would have rather you have literally gave it to Minnesota and then had the first round pick for next year. And then if you wanted to make the trade, because guess what? You don't have that first round pick this year. So now you're dead to rights if this team is just staying afloat. So yes, I believe Lemieux should be having a conversation with him. And Rutherford, to me, is outdated. Toon and I have talked about they should bring Botterill back. Yes, I 100% believe Botterill should be coming back here.
He got fired from Buffalo.
I know he did.
That was a shocker.
And that's not his fault.
No, not
that
at all.
is not.
The owners
Botterill's
of
fault.
Buffalo are not good. They laid off all their employees while they went on a trip across seas during COVID.
Yep.
Yeah, there's an article about that because everyone from Bills fans
That's wrong.
to Sabres fans said, yeah, we have terrible owners. I'm going to add to your comment. When they took Barzal, when we traded that pick to Edmonton, guess who got taken before him? Thomas Cabot, who's with the Senators. You could have had a defenseman on the left side. So you had at least 2 picks
And
Jake DeBrusk went too, if I'm not
and
mistaken.
the Penguin fans are literally scratching their heads. Why are we getting older and not getting faster and things like that? It's because you trade your first round pick every year and you're not getting anything coming back. You're getting guys that are rental players. And the thing is again, this team had the spine built. You build around the spine. It's not difficult sometimes. Yes, sometimes you need to trade the first round pick to do it. But you should not do it every year. This is why the Pens are in this hole. I got so sick of hearing, you got to win now, so you got to trade it. Yes, but the thing is you can do that by packaging other players into this. We packaged in Addison for Zucker and things like that. Sometimes you just got to do the second round pick and a decent prospect that may or may not make it as a tweener, and then you can get a guy in here. This this team has no guys relatively coming up that were able to help the Penguins that are actually able to play now. Like, yes, PJR and Poland are solid prospects, and I believe that they should be up here next year. But now I'm questioning because you traded that first round pick for Kapanen. Because where's Poland going to play? Where's PJR going to be?
So I'm gonna add to your comment, but let's go over some of the moves that Rutherford has made. So we're gonna start with after we defeated Nashville for our back-to-back cups.
Do you want me to?
So
When you put these out there, do you want my original reaction of what it was or how it played out? Let me ask you that.
You can give me your
Fair
reaction.
question.
So that was Ryan Reeves in the 31st overall to get. We give up Oscar Sundqvist in the 31st to drop down 20 spots and to get Ryan Reeves.
Ryan Reeves, who you end up trading, and I absolutely hate it because Klim was still there, the highest European skater out of Russia, who could have came in and played with Gino possibly. Granted, he hasn't made it up yet with St. Louis, but they're playing a different style right now, guys. That's why he hasn't made it up there. He can play the NHL game, but when you play in the AHL and the NHL, it's hard to find that like confidence boost. I believe if Klim would have been here, he would already be up on this team. I hated when we did that. I didn't believe Reeves was needed because guess what? When you played Washington, because we gone for Tom Wilson,
he was barely out there against
Wilson. He wasn't going to be playing against Tom Wilson when we were away. And when we were home, I bet you that Ryan Reeves wasn't going to be playing against Tom Wilson because you weren't going to want to sacrifice him on the first or second line. Because that's what Washington does with him. Tom Wilson plays first line minutes, guys.
He's going to be out there at least 20. Easy.
So he's going to be out there, but he's going to be out there against Malkin when we're home. When we're away, he's going to be out there against Crosby. Where was he going to fit? That's when how we talked about Kadri. Those are the type of guys you want if you want to shut down a guy like Tom Wilson, or you want to have the big bruiser defensemen like the Chris Progners of the world that are going to be out for 30 minutes that are going to shut people like Tom Wilson up the old-fashioned way. Not these forwards. The forwards, if you're going to have a guy on the third or fourth line, have the guys that are going to play be defensive responsible back there versus having a guy that's just going to be skating around wasting minutes. And Ryan Reeves is a solid player, but
how often is he going to see ice time against?
In the playoffs, it doesn't happen. And he's defensive reliable, but he's not at the same time.
He's not going to shut down Backstrom.
He took a 5-minute major into Game 7.
That was a bad hit.
Like
that was.
I absolutely hated to pick guys when we did it.
I didn't like it either. That was a waste of assets because the guy we drafted, he had retired due to PCS. So it's like we lost a pick out of it. So you got nothing out of it. Then you move, and of course,
and it's a crapshoot in the second round.
But
literally the first round is the only time you really have it. It becomes a crapshoot after that.
What I hated after that though is you move Reeves again,
and
it just wasn't necessary. Like that's where I, as a fan, would say,
go in depth of that particular trade of everybody that was involved in that particular trade. It was a 3-way trade.
I didn't like it at all. I'm not gonna say I hated Reeves. The only thing I didn't like about it, I don't like giving up a first to get a fourth line forward. I disagree with that completely. I'll give up a third because a third is a third. Don't get me wrong. You can find gold anywhere. Tristan Jarry, Jake Gensel were third-round picks. Those are two good players.
You hit lightning in the bottle, and that's what it becomes.
That's the thing. Nothing is set in stone, which is, In
that trade, when we traded Ryan Reeves to Vegas, we traded him to clear up cap, but we also traded Phil Gustafsson, one of my World Junior guys that I fell in love with, and I still believe he could be a big-name guy in the NHL. And Ian Cole,
who is still a shot blocking,
and a first-round pick for who?
Derek Brassard, who just didn't fit here. He's not the type of center the Penguins needed.
And messed up the chemistry of a team that was winning in February.
You can't ask an offensive center to become a shutdown center.
No.
It doesn't work. I want to add on to that trade for a minute because one of the things that bothered me, and let's go back to the Phil Kessel trade for a minute here because we both feel the same way about Phil Kessel. But this bothers me for a minute. If we would have moved Derek Pouliot instead of Kapanen and Scott Harrington, you'd still have Kapanen now. You wouldn't have to have given up a first on top of Phil Hollander to get Kapanen, which is dumb. You'd still have a Scott Harrington who you don't need Jack Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saving money on the cap.
We could touch base on that one a little bit more. I don't know if they would have taken Poland at that point.
Pouliot?
Or Pouliot, sorry.
Dude,
Pouliot in that point in time because, I mean, he went to Vancouver and he became nothing.
Well,
however, you want to touch base on that one, and I'm sure we'll go to it, but I'll go to it right now since it's there. You got Kessel for a steal. You got a point per game guy.
I agree.
And Toronto is eating $2 million of that cap, or $2.5 million, and you just traded Phil Kessel for
Alex Galchenyuk and Pierre-Olivier Joseph. He's going to be the best player in that deal. I stand by that just because of his age and how good he can be. But at that point, and I'm going to add to this, I get why Kessel was moved. I don't agree with it. I don't, because you got an absolute garbage return. I don't like Brandon Tanev's cap hit, but I like what he brings to the team. I just wish he wasn't making $3.5 million to the cap. But
those are the guys that you allegedly went cuffs with. But how me and you said, you don't need to spend that much. You can go get a partner in for $1 million that's sitting there that wants to play dirty. Well, not dirty, but with grit.
He plays a Chris Kunitz game, and then there's nothing wrong with that.
And those are the guys that you want. Tanev, just you're paying too much for not results of how you need it.
He'll draw penalties, and he'll hold on to the puck. He'll kill penalties for you. But other than that, and he is fast. That is the one thing that I am very impressed with. But I'll tell you, that was maybe Rutherford saying, okay, we need to get faster. Do I believe he overpaid for him? Yes, I'm not going to say that was a bad signing. The one thing that killed me about that Kessel trade, this is why I stand by we should have traded Pouliot. His value was still high. And everyone wanted him. If he turned out the way he is now, and let's say we move him and we get Kessel, well, you still have Gavin. You're not giving up Philip Hollander. You're not giving up Harrington. You have depth. You don't have a reason to get Jack Johnson.
No.
And at that point, you still probably, if you trade Ian Cole, you still have a replacement, and he's cheaper. Jack Johnson's cap hit is 3.25, and if his minutes aren't limited, look what happened this past series. He's not that good. A decade and a half ago, yeah, I might take him because he's Crosby's age. Cool. Mm-hmm. Now, no, he's being paired with John Marino at times. That hampers John Marino. That can't happen. He's got to play seventh defenseman, or you got to put Jack Johnson in fourth line forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, my whole thing is, Toon, the Penguins have invested a lot of bad picks, trading them in with the signings. Why aren't we signing defensemen how we went for like Paul Martin, McCulloch that one year, and just drafting defensive depth?
I'm glad
they're not doing it, and they're not changing. And I didn't hate the Jack Johnson trade as much as everybody else. I
don't hate it either.
I wasn't like jumping for joy when we made the trade or made the signing. I was like, all right, let's see how this plays out. However, you haven't added anything relatively. You've gotten lucky more than anything, because let's just imagine Pettersson hasn't worked out the way he has so far. And that's one of Rutherford's good trades. But you got lucky, though, with it, because Pettersson wasn't supposed to be up here yet. He was supposed to be Dumo's replacement whenever that came to. And then you got lucky with John Marino because former Penguin players were playing with him in the offseason. They're like, you got to go get this guy type thing. That was just being at the right place, right time. But what has he actually done that was like a good sign or a good trade since Botterill left? And that's what I always question. And people are like, oh, he's done this. He's won 2 cups. You can't argue this, Cam. Well, yes, I can, because me and you always call him Carolina 2.0, because don't forget, this is the guy that traded for Jordan Staal and gave up Sutter and Dumo and the first-round pick that allowed you to get Pouliot for Jordan Staal. Let's not forget that this guy has made some bad trades and got ran out of town in Carolina. When you are given a team like the Penguins, it's easy to build on, especially when you first get there. But the thing is I think this guy has gotten lost in time. And to me, when you have a point-per-game player with Phil Kessel and you're only paying him about $6 million, $5.5, $6 million at that point in time, you can't trade an asset about that, especially because they're like, oh, the analytics are telling us that Galchenyuk's a little bit better in the defensive zone. Do you know what a right winger actually has to do when he's on defense?
He just has to cover the point.
He has to cover the point.
He comes down and helps out the defenseman or the center if need be, but you're going to leave a guy open. That's just going to happen.
It wasn't his fault. Him and Malkin can't play with each other. the thing is, the Penguins are always set up for 3 lines anyways. And you know what? Am I allowed to curse a little bit on this?
Oh yes, absolutely. Like there's no extremities. You're not dropping F's or B's, but like a little bit of.
Not saying that.
I'm saying any little bit.
I
Of
was
sense
always convinced that Phil Kessel needed a piece of shit center to play with because that's how he played better. Because he was going to be fed the puck.
He had time with Bozak, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
That was he puts.
And he made Bonino. Give a guy like him, of the caliber of him, that's going to be fed the puck on the rush and let him release his shot. That's when he is going to take off. And that's why him and Malkin couldn't play together. That's why him and Crosby couldn't play together, is because they just play too different of a way. Because Malkin and Crosby want to cycle down below, and Malkin's the guy that likes to take a shot on the rush if he's not cycling down below also. Mm-hmm. He didn't fit. But he fit on the third line. And as a right winger, you only have to cover the point for the most part. You don't have to be that defensive reliable. That was a complete media move. And as a season ticket holder for the Penguins, I cannot stand that Rutherford's telling me that we're a win now team, but yet you're doing all these questionable moves and you keep on messing it up. Because I'm a firm believer, if you would come out and tell me, because I want Letang gone. That's just me personally. A lot of people get mad when I say it. It's fine. I will tell you guys that, again, I'm not normally wrong when I have my beliefs. However, if you came and told me, you know what, we had our run and we're going to grow, let them it'd be like old married couple that have been married for 50 years. You had fun when you were younger and everything. You grew with each other and then you died with each other. If you told me that that's what the Penguins were going to do with Crosby, Malkin, Fleury, Letang, Kessel, I've been like, you know what? That's fine. I enjoyed it, and I get to watch these players that I grew up and I loved and things like that. Great. But the thing is they keep on telling me we're trying to win. We're trying to win. Not with these moves, you're not.
Fair statement. All right. Toon, any last comment on Rutherford, his trades, and kind of the opinion on the players?
Why are you shopping?
Let's stick to Rutherford.
Like, why are you shopping Jared McCann? Because he had a down season and his playoff run wasn't that bad. Nick Bjugstad got hurt at home. He had a sports hernia. I get that's a freak injury. Don't get me wrong. But you signed Jack Johnson and you're beefing him up. You're trying to build up his trade value so some team maybe will take him off your hands. But you're defending him, but you're throwing Justin Schultz under the bus saying he could have been better. Well, Jim, your moves could have been better. You evaluate, like Mike Sullivan, he's the one who sets the lineup, but you evaluate him. You both evaluate the players. That is you making a mistake, signing a defenseman, allowing him to play 20-plus minutes. You traded Alemata, as Cam noted, to get Dominic Kuhn in a fifth, just to move him later for two guys that Rodriguez didn't even play. Mm-hmm. Connor Sheary still can't hit the broadside of a barn, and he gets top 6 minutes. He's nothing more than a middle 6 forward. You keep him in the bottom 6? I'll be the first one to say it. I didn't like Dominic Simone being in the top 6, but he's defensive responsible. He's that good defensively.
Yep.
He is the second smartest hockey player on that team behind Crosby. That's why I don't mind him being up there. Does he have to score goals? It would be nice. But he's sound defensively. He's cheap. He does not take penalties that are dumb. Connor Sheary, he doesn't go to the corners. He doesn't go to the net. So if you're not scoring goals, you're not doing the little things that make you better or to show the coach, hey, I'm giving you an effort. It's just I'm snake bitten. Why are you in the top 6? But then again, my gripe comes to Sullivan. Your ego's in the way, man. You're Dan Bosma 2.0 right now. It's getting old. You don't want to adjust or make changes. You're getting burnt. You can't score 13 goals in 2 playoff seasons combined. That has to stop. Malkin had a tremendous so-called preseason, but when this all started, he's absolutely invisible. Crosby didn't look any better. Apparently, he had wrist surgery. Jake Gensel had a couple of points. I don't mind the Marleau trade, but when changes were necessary, why was he not healthy scratched? Why are you moving Jared McCann from center, then to wing, then you're moving him up and down the lineup?
You're never letting him get into a vibe.
And I would
at
say
that point in time, like you gotta let him get into a rhythm.
This bothers me more. He plays all 3 forward positions. Mm-hmm. Why are you trading a guy that plays all 3 forward positions?
They're hard to find.
He's 23. He's cheap. That's a guy like Rust or Gensel you're going to build around. You don't trade him away just because he has a good season. Then
that sounds like quite the boneheaded oversight.
Well, I mean, as Cam said, we're trying to get younger. We want to win now. You're not going to move Bukestad, who has the $4 million cap hit. You're not moving Johnson, who's making 3.25. What am I missing? You keep guys every year. This happens. I'm sure you know this. They talk about shopping Malkin and Letang. It never, but nothing ever comes about it. When do you move one of those two possibly? When do you finally entertain that and say, we're going to wake the team up and say one of these guys is gone? Who do I think gets moved? It's 58. Why? Because you have John Marino, and he makes nothing. If you found Letang's successor, you trade Letang now, get forward help. You look for defensemen, or if you can get a top four defenseman via trade who is younger and cheaper, you get more assets for him. Oh, you're restocking the cupboards. So this way, when you lose Crosby Malkin to retirement, you could ship off Gensel and Rust if they want to go to other contenders. You start rebuilding. So this way, the rebuild isn't as bad. But we're shipping away assets. Philippe Gustafsson. This would have made moving one of Jari or Murray less painful because now you have somebody else besides Emil Lamar down in the minors. So you have the depth. Getting Kapanen back. I don't mind it, but I don't like moving both the first and Philippe Hollander. One of them is okay, not both. That's a waste of assets. Jim, your management of assets is really, really bad. Now, I'm saying Carolina. They're getting firsts to take away bad contracts. They might move their own first, but if it's 30th, that's not going to bother them. They got Toronto's.
No. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Sometimes you have to trade a first or a second rounder and get a team to eat the contract. But it's not a bad move if it's going to free up. I will tell you right now, if we gave up a second to free up to Jack Johnson, you were able, or let's just say you were to work out a three-way trade like Edmonton or something like that, and you're like, all right, we'll give you Letang or Murray, but Letang's going somewhere else, but someone has to take Jack Johnson in this regard. Guess what? You just freed up because Justin Schultz is gone. You now have the picks coming. You get a pick somewhere for Murray, for sure. But you would have about $13 million just from Letang and Schultz gone. Then you add in the 3.5. Remember how I mentioned Paul Martin McCulloch? Could you imagine if we went and got, because this team has to simplify. They can't play fast anymore. They got to go to like the Detroit Red Wings of how we were talking back when they had Brett Hall and things like that.
2 decades ago, absolutely.
But the thing is, if you have a bruising defense that's going to beat the crap out of you, like the Islanders, let's just use them for an example, that's tough to play against. To have to deal with that and then know that Crosby Malkin's going to be coming back down at you, that's something that could fix this team and fix it quickly on the run. Letang can't play the game that he once could. And that's what is getting lost in transition. People love Letang because he makes special plays, but guess what? The guy had 1 assist, I believe, or he had 0 points. No, he's had 1 assist the past 8 playoff games, and he's also been a -4, and he was a -2 this particular playoffs. The guy's somewhat of an issue at this point, and it's because he's not playing the game. And I will tell you right now that in the game 1 against the Islanders last year in the playoffs, Letang's the one that costed us because he tried skating through the middle against that team and gave it right in the neutral zone. They came down on 2-on-1 and scored.
Can't be cute with the puck in the playoffs. You can't. That is one of my biggest pet peeves, especially if you're a defenseman.
He's not the guy. You need to build off of the aging guys if you can and build around them. But I don't think Letang's that key component. And I love when I get on Facebook arguments with people, and I love poking the bear, guys. I do. However,
admit it.
Oh, I do. However, to me, Letang's only been here for 1 cup. Granted, he has 3, and he's played in 2 of them. He played bottom 6 pairing into 2019, so he wasn't a big factor. He was a huge factor in 2016. I really don't believe we win the cup without him. But then you went in 2017 and won the cup without the guy. Tell me why he is so vital to this defensive core and why he can't be moved. And when someone actually gives me a straight-up answer without just rebutting cups and points and stuff like that, because points don't win championships, then I'll calm down on it. But until that happens and no one's actually been able to give me the answer.
I mean, here's the first thing I'm thinking maybe somebody will say to you. If you take him off the lineup right now, you're left with John Marino and Chad Ruhwedel on the left side as right-handed shooting defenseman. And Chad Ruhwedel's I like him as a depth defenseman, but he does not replace Letang. Now, Letang can move the puck. Yes, he's supposed to do everything. But, yeah, I agree with you. The bonehead play's got to stop. And he has Dumoulin. He has a blanket cover.
Dude, let me ask you this.
All right.
Marino goes in for Letang. Marino's now playing with Dumo, or Marino's playing with Pedersen. That's your top pairing. I don't hate it. I really don't. You go and sign Dumo. You take the $7.5 million that Letang's making. And you sign another bruising defenseman. Then all of a sudden, you're able to go with like a Ruedel and possibly sign another defenseman that's on the cheap, like how we talked about Shattenkirk, someone that's been bought out that wants to win. You could easily build on that.
I don't have a problem going out and getting a cheap.
You would have $13 million to put into this defense and really get it going and play a simplified game.
There's a guy I wanted years ago, and it never happened. I understand why, but I'll tell you, Dustin Byfuglien was a guy I thought him on defense with that booming shot.
If Byfuglien came here, and this is the most beautiful thing about Dustin Byfuglien, guys, he could play right wing. You could make him universal at that point in time.
He won a cup with the Blackhawks in 2010. And he was a right winger.
Yep.
He was with Jonathan Taves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll tell you, and I like when you brought up Martin and McCulloch, because when we lost Paul Martin and he went to the Sharks, I'm like, I wouldn't have mind keeping him. If you put him with Mata at that point, and the other thing, there's another factor. When we had Matt Niskanen, who Todd Reardon revived his career, if you keep Matt Niskanen, you could still move Letang, and you still end up with Marino right now. Matt Niskanen is not a bad defenseman. He won't cost you as much.
No.
He doesn't have to play. He doesn't have to be that number one. But at that point, Mata's not what he's a number 2 or 3. John Marino's hands down at top.
Mata was a steal. I don't know why Pittsburgh fans love to jump on Mata.
Everyone says that he's slow. My argument with them is, you know what? Jack Johnson's not any faster. And Mata, he has the most.
Was playing either the 3-4 or the 5-6. What more do you want from the guy?
I mean, he's not going to be perfect. I mean,
no.
A blanket and some popcorn.
My argument with Pittsburgh fans was this: you right Brooks Orpik, and every time as the years went by, he's getting surgery, so he's ready for April. And he's he's crunching people. But when he misses and the puck's in the back of your net, I mean, at the point when we had Bosma, he's knocking guys in the flurry. Oh, great! Now you're hurt. Why is he not getting benched?
Mm-hmm.
Brooks Orpik was a guy I never liked. Mata got a terrible.
Brooks Orpik had one big shift and made every fan love him against the Red Wings when he went nuts and drilled. He had like 5 straight checks,
and that's
what made his legacy, because everybody loved to do that and they loved to go.
Kind of sounds like a Pittsburgh thing.
The one guy who they absolutely regretted letting him walk was Rob Scuderi. That was not smart because it
wasn't smart at the time, but I mean, Scuderi turned into Trevor Daley, and that was a great move.
But when we first lost Scuderi and you replaced him with Jay McKee, like that doesn't work.
But you want to know what was great about Scuderi in that 2009? You had bruisers. You had Hal Gill.
Yep,
you had Orpik. You had Scuderi. They were bruisers that were going to beat the crap out of you. And this team does not have it. They're like puck moving. Guess what? When Dumo's your only bruiser, you're not beating the crap out of the other team in the boards, and that is a big deal.
I will say, if we're talking about the Penguins, they need a young power forward. They absolutely need one. You're going to lose Hornquist at some point. I know he's not the same player, but he brings the heart and soul. You got to find another guy like him.
Well, I wouldn't say we really skated away, pun intended, from the blue line here about Rutherford. Although it's easy to see why you'd stem away from it, because he's got to make trades. He's got to talk about player names all the time. And what those players do based on his trades is going to reflect on Rutherford. So no wonder why we went so far. But it's all worth it in the end. Before we make any more closing statements, I really want to circle back about 15 minutes ago when you mentioned Rutherford keeps saying, win now, and, of course, win now. And that seems, as an outsider, that seems really silly to me to always be saying we're going to win right now. It sounds too much like the Pirates, but of course they're filled with empty promises, and we know we can expect good things from the Penguins.
Now.
Oh yeah, and empty seats. Fair point. I mean, they were emptying out before they were forcefully emptied, so that's worth saying something. But that's an aside. With the win now mentality phrasing always being thrown, and it seems like it could be slowly becoming more hollow, which is the key point I'm trying to make here. Whatever happened to slow and steady? Whatever happened to the fable says, the tortoise wins the race because the hare became overconfident. When did Crosby start playing, and how many years was it until he got his first cup? I mean, don't good things come to those who wait?
Not for Crosby.
Yeah, he got drafted in 05. And
4 years, and he was already in the cup in 3.
08, 09, he got his first.
I mean, maybe that's quickly for you guys. A couple years sounds like quite the wait to me, but again, I'm the unexperienced. I am not the analyst that you two are.
Altio, I understand like the elaboration. What's the main question with the Crosby? Because there's one thing that I'll be able to say to, and I guarantee say, but are you asking how long it's going to be dark out there to win now?
Not now, but I felt like, like you said, I thought he started around, like I want to say, like 4 or 5.
Yeah, he was drafted
and
in
then
05.
of course, the win didn't come until the 2009 season.
Right.
Which is a good couple years. And he didn't even have to play in the minors for the Penguins. He just went straight to team.
Mm-hmm.
So going 4 years until you win your cup, granted you're still touted as the number 1 in the world, 4 years is quite a long wait. And of course, we're talking about someone, the number 1 eventually getting his first cup. And that's very different from making trades for the team overall to get a cup, as soon as possible. But
with that particular situation, remember how I kept on repetitively saying you got to build the spine, you got to build the spine.
Yeah,
the spine was built at that point in time. They did it right. How I said about Detroit, you had Crosby, you had to wait a couple years for Malkin to come up.
Right.
Well, come from Russia is what the issue was. But that allowed the team to stay down. But they started building that spine right then and there with the Crosby and Letang were the same year. But when you had that built, you were able to add in on that particular team through the free agency because they weren't making a lot of money yet.
Okay.
Once they got their contract and they signed
once they made more and hit the salary cap.
But the thing is, this team's in a win now moment with Crosby the way it is, and you have to now build around their contracts.
Right.
And that's where Rutherford keeps on messing up, is he's not building around their contracts properly.
Mm-hmm. Would you say he's reacting to their current year contracts a bit too hastily, though?
Yes.
Okay, so
yeah,
and that's kind of more the point I was trying to make. Rutherford's acting very hasty as of right now.
Right. Like when we drafted Crosby and Malkin, they're on their entry-level contract, so they're not making anything. So we have more money to spend. That's why we went out and got John LeClaire and Zygmunt Palffy and Mark Recchi for a couple of seasons.
Because to also bring up the point, with like Recchi, I'm thinking of ours, which brings me to Reeves. We had Reeves for only half a season before he was traded off of our team again. Of course, applying to the speed at which Rutherford's kind of moving.
Allegedly, Sullivan never wanted them.
They
didn't communicate.
That's where those two.
I know there's a lot of further nuances and details that probably go into everything.
I think it's like how I am playing a video game or watching Netflix. I'm not a person that could binge watch or anything like that, and I think Rutherford's sort of the same, to where he gets bored or he panics, and he's like, "Oh, I got to make a move." Type thing. It's not working out right now, so I got to make a move. Let's see if I can fix this instead of just playing it out.
Right. And to add to that, besides the slow and steady and acting too hastily, Rutherford's so many recent trades, not all of them, but some of them, they strike me as like having a gambler mindset. You keep mentioning lightning in a bottle. He got lucky. Now, right place, right time might be more of a skill, because if you can recognize you're in the right place in the right time and capitalize off it, that's a skill. If it just happened anyways and you just happen to get lucky, well then, of course, capitalizing is not the skill at that point. But it seems he's way too gambling. I mean, you're running a sports team. You're not just pulling the lever at the slots at the Rivers Casino. And is it fair for me to say that he seems a bit too gambly at times? Would you agree with my statement?
Yeah, at times he just makes a trade just because he can, and I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, traded in the 15th overall pick right now for Kapanen instead of just seeing what
was out there.
He could have waited until our pick was up and then been like, you know what? Let's. I've had these offers and stuff like that. Let's pull the trigger. Because I guarantee other teams would have been higher on other players, and you could have gotten maybe more.
He could have patched it with Murray, and maybe seen if you can get more of a haul. Say, okay, we'll give you our first, and we'll give you Murray, but you got to take Jack Johnson. I mean, that's not a bad deal. You're clearing salary. You're losing a pick that doesn't help you right this second. Technically, one can argue that, but still, You're losing a goalie.
Mhm.
There's no way around it. But if you move that first and you package it with Johnson, for example, there's your salary cleared up. What comes back your way that helps you now?
Yeah, you did mention the $13 million, an easy way to clear it up, and then work around with contracts and everything.
To me, it's a hard move to make, moving Letang the way it is, but there's logical thinking to it.
Oh yeah, there's decent reasons, and like you said, there's good logic behind it. It's not something empty. It's not a phrase tossed out there.
And this is something you're going to hear. We hear every year. They always talk about shopping Malkin and Letang. You always hear, but nothing ever comes about it.
Well, Malkin has a full no trade clause. He can't go anywhere unless he approves it.
And years ago, he said it was either New York or Montreal, maybe Florida now. But what are you going to get back in return? Like what entices you? Like what do you want
You're
back?
not getting Huberdeau.
I would want Barkov, and they're going to say no.
Yeah, you're not going to get the guy.
You're not going to get.
And it's harder to replace a top 6 guy, especially a centerman of his caliber. You're not going to see an equal return by any means versus moving Letang and then seeing what you could possibly get. Right. But the 7.5 to me is just the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm sure what you actually have available to offer and what you can actually probably try to feasibly get in return. Sure is a big thing, and of course we all hear about the trade rumors and how there's a lot of behind closed doors details that
there's always that talk.
We people don't get to see, don't get to hear. So, I mean, who knows what goes on in those trade deals and those discussions and everything. All we can ever really talk about is the end result, what actually occurs, who gets traded, and where and why.
I mean, I did like the Zucker trade. Don't get me wrong. I like that. Did I like giving up Addison? No, but I understood why, because you're dumping Galchenyuk. So that was the salary dump.
Let me ask you this too.
Sure, one last question.
I was on the record. I put everything on Facebook like I do. Does it still count? Because I said the Pens weren't going to make the playoffs this season last year after we signed like Tanev and everything. Does it still count? Or did they?
No, they said every team that made the so-called postseason of this year, that is still technically the playoffs. So our record is still at 14. I don't agree with it to an extent.
I feel like since we lost because you didn't get in, like to me, you had to win the qualifying matchup to be in the playoffs. Yeah, I disagreed with it actually even counting as playoff stats because it shouldn't be. It should be the 3 rounds and then the Stanley Cup.
I would have just canceled the season.
Hey, I mean, these are just subjective things you can really talk about nowadays.
Well, I mean, the rumor is that Washington, they didn't want to play. They were out partying and such. And if that's the truth, because numerous insiders are saying that. So if that's the case, they're saying, why are we risking this? It's not the actual NHL playoffs. It's, okay, get to the top of the mountain now. There's no rules.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that finishes off with Rutherford and his trade. So let's trade into a new topic. We're going to go down the totem pole a bit to the head coach, Mike Sullivan. And I'm sure you've got some choice things to say about him. I as well kind of lean in Toon's direction, talking about a possible Bylsma 2.0. And I don't know what Cam thinks or feels about that, but let's find out. Toon, you want to start us off on this one since Cam started with Rutherford.
You had 2 early exits. And in those 2 early exits, you've scored a combined 13 goals. Something has to change. You're not adjusting in mid-game. You're seeing what's going on, and you're not making the adjustments. And each time a new game shows up, you're still leaving everything the same. The only change you'll make, okay, I'll move this guy down on the spot. No. Start healthy scratching players. You bench Jared McCann, but Connor Sheary's out there, and he's not doing a thing. That annoys me. Jack Johnson is playing top 4 minutes, and he's causing your defense to just it's being dismantled. He can't play 20 minutes. If you say 14 to 16, and he's limited to playing in certain situations, that's fine. I can live with that. He can't play 20 minutes. Justin Schultz hasn't been that great, but Chris Letang didn't play any better. Don't get me wrong. But Sullivan's the head coach. He has the final say. I don't like how some guys who just either aren't that effective or they're not playing that great, Sullivan, he lets them do what they want. This is Dan Bosma 2.0. I remember years ago, he would let Brooks Orpik play. All he would do is either hit guys into Fleury or into Johnson, whoever our backup was, give up goals, but then Simone Dupre's getting benched because he makes a mistake because he's a rookie. That has to stop. Mike Sullivan, he needs to swallow his pride, and he needs to learn to adapt. Now, the Penguins brought in Todd Reardon. Welcome back, Todd, and Mike Vellucci. Mike Vellucci was the assistant coach and No, he was the head coach and the general manager down in Wilkes-Barre. He's won at every level. He's coached guys such as Tyler Seguin, JT Miller, everyone's personal hero here, Tom Wilson. The guy...
Hey, I'm a Tom Wilson guy. Let's not get that wrong. I love players that play on the edge. I get it.
I'm on the opposite side of that coin.
I like the way Wilson plays. I just wish he would watch how he hits.
Take a dumpster, light it on fire, and throw Wilson in it.
I'm not going to stop
Just saying.
I will say, though, the guy knows what he's doing, and there's a reason why Mike Vellucci's up here. Mm-hmm. Rutherford Mike Sullivan is on the hot seat. If the Penguins don't start good next season, he's gone.
By midseason, you say?
I say by November. The Penguins start out real bad, there's a problem. Because that means now that he lost the locker room. You come in, you get a new voice. I get it. You win 2 cups. I know the next year wasn't pleasant, but then you can't have 2 back-to-back early exits. It can't happen. You're wasting years of Crosby and Malkin. That's wasting seasons. We talked about giving up assets. But if Rutherford makes dumb trades, but then Sullivan, he's healthy scratching players for whatever reason. Like, I disagree still with Jared McCann being shopped. Why are you shopping Jared McCann? He don't have him as the third-line center. Mm-hmm. Either you keep him on the wing in the top 9, or, that's that. Just, you don't have to move him left and right. Leave him somewhere in the top 9, preferably on the left wing. Bring in a third-line center, unless Bukestad can absolutely stay healthy, which I'm saying the 3 of us will win the lottery first before that happens.
Terrible trade.
I don't like giving up 2 seconds and a fourth for McCann. Don't get me wrong, but I would say if you can find a third-line center somehow, and Jerry McCann stays on wing.
McCann was the equivalent of Pascal Dupuis in that Marian Hossa trade. You got lucky more than anything. Let me say this to you, dude. Who is Carol Brady's favorite Brady Bunch? Who is her favorite daughter?
I don't like the Brady Bunch, so don't ask me that question.
Marsha.
Altio knows it. Who is Mike Brady's favorite son?
Okay, that one I don't know.
Greg Brady. Do you know what hubris means?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What's hubris mean?
I'm going to let you explain that right now, just so...
It means excessive pride. Sullivan loves to play his favorites, and that's where the Brady Bunch comes into play in that regard. He loves playing his favorites. That's why Sherry's playing. He was here when he won. He was there when he was down in Wilkes-Barre. He plays favorites, and it's not the way to go. It's not building a team. It's not putting the best team on ice is what I should say. Right. And you're not being fair to the team in that regard. If this particular player is playing because Sullivan grew up with him down in Wilkes-Barre, and he's notorious for doing it. It's been proven now.
Yeah.
He does not like playing players that he gets younger players. Otherwise, Pullen would have been up here this year. He should have been, especially when this team was struggling. And when I say the excessive pride, he's afraid he will not go against it because he thinks he is right. And he had too much success too early. And he's an older coach. He's been around like with Boston, things like that. But when he came up here and he won the way he did, it was just like Bosma. All of a sudden, you can't be wrong.
No systems implemented until the next year, and then you see what happens.
He quit even playing matchups.
Yep.
I don't get why the Penguins, and I guess it's hubris at that point in time, but the Penguins are like, we don't need to play matchups. Why wouldn't you want Crosby against their third-line pairing every single time on that face-off?
I agree.
To give yourself possession and the best chance to score. They, year in, year out, do that. And Sullivan played matchups the 2 years we won the Cup.
And now he got away from it.
He stopped doing it. And I know that for a fact, against the Washington series when Tom Wilson steamrolled Aston Reese and things like that. Crosby was out there majority of the time going against Ovechkin. It's like, why are you trying to keep their players in check?
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, you're tiring out their team if you're on offense, but if they're on offense with Ovechkin stuff, you're just tiring out Crosby. And I feel like he's wasted the time. And then he doesn't alter his game against a team like the Islanders in Montreal.
Yeah, he got stifled against that system.
Why in a Game 7 against Montreal, let's not even go to the Islanders game as it's fully in the past. Everybody's going to remember the Montreal. You are in a Game 7, and remember how we talked about teams are afraid to lose? It's a chess match?
Yeah.
why would you play right into what Montreal wants and whoever scores first is pretty much going to win? Go at them.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing. They never really pressured. And then you just pretty much had a power play that was at a stalemate. And then Sullivan somehow gets a stay after 2 disappointing seasons. And to me, it's now been 3 because we lost 2 straight games, right, against the Capitals in 18.
Yep.
Was it 2?
5 and 6.
That's what I thought it was. But we went up 1 game, the first game, game 1 against Washington. It should have been an uh-oh type moment. And
I'll tell you what, game 5, they had a 2-1 lead. That's what the turning series was.
The Penguins? In that one?
Game 5, because that's even after
it was a glove hand by Matt Murray. That was ugly. I was at the game, trust me. I'll never forget that freaking goal.
I mean, I know game 5 was, if they had that 2-1 lead, Washington doesn't win that series. Did the Penguins three-peat? No, but that means at that point, not to get off topic, the Capitals started thinking, what if we trade Ovechkin? Because we haven't won with them for over a decade.
I think it would have happened if they didn't win that, to be honest. But the whole thing is I just love that Sullivan got the stay, but everybody had to lose their job because of it being
like Gonchar, Jacques Martin, Mark Recchi.
And Recchi. And Gonchar I felt like should have stayed because what has Gonchar done wrong since he's been here? I felt like he's improved. Like he's going to help a guy like John Marino. He's helped with Pedersen. And the thing is he has familiarity with the players like Crosby in the beginning and all that. He's been there almost the whole time.
He knows how they operate. He knows how they're going to play.
And I feel like they could have came to him if there was an issue going on. Like Crosby, Malkin, granted, they probably don't really need to do that. But I feel like if something needed to be said, it would have went to him and he could have been more vocal. Now all of a sudden you took that guy out of the locker room and it's Solomon and no one's going to step up to Solomon. I feel like Solomon... He should have been let go. I don't even think he should be given next season. I think you owed it to the Penguins.
I think both him and Jared should have
players, you mean?
Or the players. I believe you owed it to the players to just go and find another coach because it needs a fresh start. You don't have much.
I would have fired Jim Rutherford with him right there too. You keep making obnoxious trades. You're saying one thing, you're doing the opposite. Something's got to give.
I would have let go of both of them also. Yep, I wasn't gung ho about GMJR's head as much as I am now. He just sort of reiterated my feelings towards him after this past trade. I didn't think it was his fault. Like I didn't hate the Patrick Marleau, but the thing is Patrick Marleau doesn't have the legs anymore to be a full out like.
Right, if this was a decade ago, you'd have a different conversation.
Yeah, but I felt like he could have made a difference for Crosby if Crosby wanted to cycle down below because he's smart. Sometimes smarts wins games. And
I agree. That's 20 years in the league. That's 514 goals.
Mm-hmm. So
goals.
I just
I get he's not the same guy he used to be. Don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting him to go put up 30, 40 goals at his age, but there was nothing wrong with him trying.
He's a guy that could win face-offs for you.
Yep, because
he could play numerous roles. We go to the possession. He could kill penalties. He always did that with San Jose. I loved the trade. I questioned it because it changed the dynamic of the team of what they were going for, but they just misused him wrong. I don't think he's fast enough to be a centerman anymore.
No,
and I thought McCann should have been the centerman on that line. And
he actually was, but here's what happened: he had only won 3 out of so many faceoffs, and then Patrick Marleau comes in and he wins 3 out of 4. That's what happened.
And so that's fair, but if you don't have the legs to get back and forth anymore, you need to figure out something else. Mm-hmm. But we go with matchups.
I'll tell you what.
If you're away and you can't pick the face-off matchup,
you're in trouble. I wish they would have went out and gotten a third line center. That's really what I thought they should have done.
They needed it.
I agree.
They absolutely needed it this year.
I like Bluger, but if he's your 4th line center, where's the 3rd line? See, this is where I hate going back to the Reeves trade. Oscar Sundqvist is winning face-offs. That would have been your 3rd or 4th line center there.
Yeah, I really liked Oscar Sundqvist's game also.
That's a waste of assets. I mean, if we take out all the assets we moved, you have Kim Clijstone, you have Oscar Sundqvist, you still have Felix Gustafsson. The only guy you would have lost, you've Kapanen and Harrington. The only one you would have lost is Derek Pouliot, and he busted, which is absolutely unreal. Yeah. That's a lot of guys that you have in the minors. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Kapanen's a bad player. I'm interested to see what he brings. But I don't like giving up Hollander in the 5th. That's Filip Hollander's a guy you keep too.
I'm not holding my breath with the trade that was just made in Kapanen. It's just not there for me.
The only guy right now
Just
I
a
would
shrug
say
off.
the defensive prospect they got is the guy I'm high on. They didn't want to give him up. Apparently, he's one of the best skaters over in Europe, and I'm hoping if you strike lightning the ball with him, I'll cut you a break. But I hate moving both the first and Hollander. One of them is okay. If I'm giving up one of them, I would move the 15th. Because Hollander was projected to be a shutdown center.
And he probably has a chance. And the thing is once you get that close and you're in training camp, you're almost NHL ready. There's getting more of a look at and see exactly where you're going to fill and things like that. When you hear that and you read that in the media, they're not wrong because someone has said that. And I guarantee he is going to be close. Now, let's not say he's going to be a shutdown center, but he's going to be smart.
Right.
And that's something that is interchangeable, is just the smarts with the team. But if Sullivan's not going to give the guy a shot, then what's it matter? And the thing is Sullivan, I hate when people use scapegoats with the coaches. And I hate that the assistant coaches were the scapegoats because Sullivan should have went with them.
I agree.
And to me,
or he should have just gone alone.
No, I think Rutherford
Recchi needed to go too.
Recchi
that's fair then.
Power play was abysmal, and that was Recchi's job.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're moving the puck too much. That's why Todd Reardon got brought back. He's going to work with the power play unit and the defenseman. Reardon revived Matt Niskanen's career. That's why I like Matt Niskanen so much when we had him. That was the younger version of Letang who wanted 4 years, $18 million. That is 4.1 cap it. That's Nick Bukestad right now.
To quote Casino and Robert De Niro, you could have one or the other. You could either have your hand or the money, but you can't have both. That's how I feel about GMJR and Sullivan. It should have been a pick because if you bring in a new GM, Sullivan can't pull this garbage that he has. If you fire the coach is going to have to answer to GMJR, but he's also going to be like Lemieux's looking right at me. But when you have both of them that are familiar here now, they're comfortable.
I mean,
hubris comes in to play.
This is why I would have gotten rid of both of them, because then this is something we're going to bring up coaches real quickly. If Mike Vellucci was the GM down in Wilkes-Barre and the head coach, why didn't you just bring him up and then bring in somebody like Gerard Gallant, or as you've said, Patrick Waugh? You could have brought in Ulf Samuelsson. That's a very good defenseman. Patrick Waugh is a goalie. Can't go wrong with a goalie for a coach.
I mean, if Patrick Waugh would have been willing to come here, I think Patrick Waugh could have been your best signing that you could have done for this staff, because you have Matt Murray, who could possibly still be here, even though he's RFA. I want him gone, guys, and I hope that another team signs him to an X amount of money, because that means better picks for the Penguins than just trading them. But if you trade him, you get a first-round pick. I'm happy with that also. But the thing is he's going to be able to teach Jari, a young goaltender, tricks to the game. And Tune and I were discussing about Colorado at some point in time. He and I both agree, for the most part, that Waugh was the guy that was making that ship go. And he has an edge to him that you just don't see with goaltenders. And he makes the players play with the same concept. And he gives them the confidence. I know you love Gene Gallant, and I think Gallant is solid, but
he's a player's coach. But I also think
Waugh would. It's just to get Jari to where he needs to be.
I mean, I could see you bringing in both. I mean, the question is, which one's that coach? Which one's an assistant? That would be my only concern. I don't have a problem with either one.
Give me Waugh, because I don't think he'd be a person that's afraid to step up and say what needs to be said. I mean, his first game as a head coach, he was trying to go out there to head coach of the other team.
They're both players' coaches. That's what I like about Gerard Gallant and Patrick Waugh. I don't know if you saw this. Nope. When Patrick Waugh was head coach, he's on the stanchion, on the bench, shoving the dividing glass over into the Anaheim Ducks bench.
Yep.
He and Boudreaux are barking at each other, and Boudreaux's bright red. That's what Patrick was. That is the second winningest goaltender in the NHL. Like, the guy's won cups. He knows how to win. He's a player's coach. I think everyone would shut up and just follow his lead.
He holds to his word, because him and his head coach got into an altercation when he was in Montreal, and he went straight up to the owner and said, "I will never play for him again." And guess what?
He got traded.
Yep.
He went to Colorado.
Dang.
He'll say he will hold true to what he says, and he'll go for it. And sometimes I think
respectable.
I mean, that's the thing I like about Gerard Gallant as well. He got fired out of Florida, and that's only because the owner didn't like him.
Yep.
I mean, that's a shame. He goes to Vegas, takes them to the finals. He gets canned because what? They're struggling. Every team's going to
They
struggle.
weren't even
Though.
struggling.
That was George McPhee wanting to help his buddy Brad McCrimmon. That's what that was. That's where I'd lose respect for Vegas. Like, George McPhee has not done anything. He stifled the Capitals when he knew he was getting fired.
Yep.
Oh, he's going to do it to Vegas, and Gerard Gallant's going to go. But Pete DeBoer can't coach. That's where I lose respect.
He's a choke artist.
It's like, well, I don't know if you know this. When George McPhee was the GM of the Capitals, when he was getting fired, he traded away prospect Philippe Forsberg to the Predators for Martin Erat and Michael Lotta. And Philippe Forsberg is a 30-goal scorer.
Yep.
Martin Erat played 2 seasons and left.
All right. Well, like you said, the assistant coaches were relieved of their duties, and probably rightfully so. And at least how it was mentioned that they had their own reasons as well. And we'll have to eventually, relieve the topic of Mike Sullivan here, who he himself might get relieved. We'll find out, though. Any parting comments you want to say about Mike Sullivan, whether they be advice for his short time that he wants to possibly extend, or you want to give him your early goodbyes? Cam, you want to take the mic first? Small things to say to Sullivan. I mean, look right at Cam. You're going to be telling it right to Sullivan.
Sullivan, goodbye.
That's it. Short and sweet. Toon, anything you want to say to Sullivan? Advice?
You got to stop playing favorites. You got to do what's best for the team. This is a proud team, a proud organization. You had 2 early exits that are not acceptable. The fans, you're letting them down. The players are going to say, we're letting the fans down. You as the head coach, you own up to the responsibility. You and JR get fired, that's not my problem. An average tenure for a head coach is 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Barry Trotz and Joel Quenneville are the only 2 that have lasted longer.
Wise things to consider.
And they were both run out of their respective teams. That bothers me. Nashville never had an offense. That's why Barry Trotz got run out of town. But you see what he's doing with the Islanders.
Right.
I mean,
Trotz, he had his chances, but the organization never put a team around him. I mean, when you're making David Legwand your star player, and for years upon years, you got an issue. That wasn't his fault.
Nope.
I was honestly upset when Trotz went to Washington.
I wanted him so badly.
Yeah, I felt like Trotz was gonna
come here.
No, I felt like Trotz was gonna get Washington to start playing defense because that was always their bugaboo. Yeah. And he did. He started doing the wheel where like Carlson would or Orlov will pinch in, and then the winger or the center would go up and rotate. This way, they would just never lose possession down low.
I was asked an honest question, so this is going to be an interesting one. If the Penguins got Barry Trotz when Nashville let him go, how many cups do they have right now?
I would say 3.
I'm the same way.
I would say 3.
I would say on top of that, I say Ovechkin gets traded.
When it was 2017, I asked one of my good buddies, Joey, I'm like, is this the year Ovechkin gets traded? Because how much longer is he going to want to be there? And they were fortunate because if they didn't win 18, I think
Washington would ask themselves, we haven't won with you in over a decade.
I think Ovechkin would have been gone.
All right. Well, then, we'll move on to leave Sullivan behind. Maybe the Pens will be leaving him behind too. We'll talk more about 2 specific players on the team itself in the net position. What's going on between Matt Murray and Tristan Jarry? Let's talk about these goaltending situations here in Pittsburgh. Cam, you want to start us off?
Marshall. I don't know why. Well, he's a Sullivan guy, so
Mr. Murray.
Murray keeps on getting the leeway. You got to remember, Jarry was playing outstanding. He had a little rough patches. What's going to happen to goaltenders? But he was an all-star for a reason. You don't just get that in the NHL at that particular position. Jarry was playing lights out, and he wasn't even looked at. And all the media was saying that he was playing better than Murray during training camp. And Toon and I have discussed that Murray wasn't the reason that the Pens lost, but he also wasn't the reason that we won any games. He wasn't making timely saves. And there's no saying that Jarry would have, but the thing is Murray probably wasn't going to be back this year from what his agent was saying. Tooney even said that Murray unfollowed the Penguins on Instagram. That's saying something.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you want to see what you were going to get with Jari come the playoffs and everything, so you for sure knew? Because with Matt Murray, the guy's a head case. From one, I'll elaborate on that more. As Altio and I are both former goalies. I don't know if you guys could ever see him playing soccer.
Yeah, myself for soccer, I played goalie in soccer, and I was quite the brick wall.
Oh yes, he was. If you had him, you won a championship. However, I'll get to that in a second.
Oh, so you're better than Murray. Congratulations.
But the thing is
well, shots fired, but not by me.
But the thing is about Murray, you knew that he didn't have a glove hand coming up, and the glove hand is an issue, and it hasn't improved yet. And they're like, he'll get better with it. He hasn't gotten better with it. But the biggest thing is his rebound control is atrocious. And that's the biggest issue, and that's why he struggles now, is because he doesn't know where the shot's going to go because teams have multiple angles to target with him. Now, when I say he's a head case, as a goaltender, you need to be able to shake off things. And with Matt Murray, he came out last year and said he was struggling because his dad died. I'm sorry, man. You're professional. And you're in a professional organization. It sucks when loved ones pass. It does. But the thing is you got to be able to shake that off and realize this is the situation you're in. You're being paid to do that. The fact that he came out publicly and said this is the issue he's struggling shows me he's a head case and he doesn't know how to overlook bad goals and things like that. He lets it ruminate and he lets it get involved into his own mind. And quite frankly, as a person that had to play goalie and things like that, if you don't have the confidence, you're not going to be able to play to your true potential. And I believe his time has run out. It's not that I don't think he can play in the league. I believe he is a quality guy, but I always compared him to Corey Schneider. And Vancouver made the right choice when they kept Luongo and traded Schneider. That's exactly what Murray's there. The potential's there, but the thing is, I don't think he's ever going to grow into it. And the Penguins would be smart to either trade him and get what they can for him. Hopefully it's a first-round pick, or let a team be dumb enough and try to sign him to a contract of like $5 to $6 million so the Pens can get like a first and a third-round pick for him, because they will have to give that because he's an RFA. And this is a conversation that Toon and I have a lot, and it never really changes, but I'll be curious to see what Toon even has to elaborate on that. I sort of feel like it's innate now when Eminem just goes off on the guy and takes out everything that he had to say, and I apologize for that, Toon.
Oh, no, you're good.
Before we transfer over to Toon, I just thought it was interesting where you mentioned about how he's not handling things particularly well, which is interesting considering he had that chance to be mentored by Fleury. And there's many stories about how Fleury had learned to take on some of the harsh things the Penguins fans have to say or often do. And it seems like Murray's not been able to shrug them off. Like he didn't learn anything from Fleury in that regard, how to shrug off the sort of the bad beats or you could say the bad jeers or chants that occur. And when you're mentioning about losing the father and how right around a similar time frame, I had lost my dad too, to a similar reason, cancer as well. And I can kind of have compassion for Murray for a little bit, because in a way you are eventually able to get over it, but in other ways it never goes away as well.
No.
So, but that's kind of just an aside where it's like, yeah, even though there are parts of me that sometimes like I feel it, as I still go out in my day to day and I work and
exactly,
and I do what I got to do.
You
and
do
of
what
course,
you have
so
to do.
I am in essence, in some ways, I'm also kind of reinforcing your point too. So I'm reinforcing both sides because there's nuance. There's a little bit of nuance here and there, but it is very easy to, let the passing of a very close one be your own crutch. You lean on it when you really shouldn't. And other times, it does affect you. And when and where he was doing it, letting it be his crutch or being an actual issue, hard to say. So I think you said there are some telltale signs, though. So there's a little give and take there. And I think at that point, it's just subjective. There's no objectivity to it. So with that being said, just wanted to give my little outsider view because I'm not an analyst. I'm not the stat man. Now let's take it to the other stat person. Toon, what do you have to say about Murray?
Well, in total fairness to Murray, yeah, losing a loved one is terrible. I understand, you've not been the same since it happened, but you do have to find a way to move past it, or, just say, hey, I'm going to be, I'm going to take time off and just stay away from the team for a while until you feel comfortable. You feel comfortable enough to come back, because that can be a distraction in the locker room. I get it. It's not something that you want to think about all the time, but you are the man here. And one of the things that bothers me, he was always embraced to be the villain when Marc-Andre Fleury got taken in the expansive draft.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't fair to Murray, but then there's fans who have high expectations for the team in the city. You win back-to-back cups. I get it. You got two of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
They're not getting younger. You want to win as much as you can now, and the job isn't getting done, and there's no way around to describe it. Does that mean it's all on Matt Murray in general? No. The team has to play in front of him.
It is a team sport.
And I will say at times, and I don't know if anyone else notices this, at times I noticed the Penguins play more differently with Jarry in net compared to Murray. They're more loose, and they're saying, okay, we know you're going to do it with Murray. No, they're trying to collapse in front of him. And that tells me we don't have confidence in you, And again, I get it. Maybe he needs some. I don't want to say this like outright to sound like a jerk. He needs some type of mental help or psychological help. Something is not clicking in his brain, and that's maybe what's affecting him this much. Because when he came up here, he was top notch. This is all arguably
his rebound. He smothered every rebound that came.
This is arguably the same roster. Like, okay, yeah, you got Jack Johnson, but back then, I mean, I know you didn't have him, but hey, look, you had Justin Schultz, who he had 1.5 decent seasons. Then he got hurt. He was never the same again.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. There's a lot of pressure on everybody on that team. Murray, this is probably his, if not only, one of his 2 last contracts. Jarry's going to get a bridge deal. I believe Matt Murray is gone. If he wants anything over 5, and with the salary cap staying flat, being $81.5 million, you're going to have players to sign. You might as well get what you can for him. The only way I see Matt Murray staying is if somebody comes over and says, we'll give you a king's ransom for Jarry. Then I can't see the Penguins turning it down, but I would still say, okay, what is the definition of a king's ransom? Like, are you going to get 3 to 4 good things that'll help you now? Are you restocking the cupboards while getting a piece or 2 that helps you now?
You mean like the Flyers allegedly offering a number 2 pick for Matt Murray, and we would have kept Fleury instead of trading Fleury in a second-round pick?
I've heard you say us trade Matt Murray to Calgary a couple years ago, and we would have gotten Matthew Tkachuk.
Yep.
I mean, that would have been a first and a second. And Frederik Anderson got a late first and a high second.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Martin Jones got a roster player, a prospect, and a first. So Corey Schneider got the 9th overall. Goalies have value. Everything differs. I would say overall, teams like maybe Calgary who aren't 100% sold on David Riddick and Cam Talbot.
I wouldn't be sold on them.
I mean, what is Colorado going to do with Grubauer? If he's still hurt, what is he going to ask for? If he asks for something outrageous and you have holes to fill, are you going to go after a guy like Murray, or do you want to go after a guy like Braden Holtby? Holtby might want $8-9 million. Matt Murray's not going to get $8 or $9 million.
His agent thinks he is, which is just, I don't know why his agent just fills himself with such hot air.
I mean, Edmonton needs goalie. Mikko Koskinen, Mike Smith. That doesn't work.
Edmonton will not win a cup while they have McDavid and Draisaitl because they have no goaltender
they have no depth.
As a prospect.
Their 3 best players make way too much, and then after that, it handcuffs your team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't. Connor McDavid is. I'm not saying he's not worth the 12.6 cap hit, but that's overpaying for one forward because Draisaitl's 9.5. Yep. That's $22 million on 2 players. Nugent Hopkins is what, 6.5?
Yeah, you can't win when you pay guys that much.
Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane.
How they are doing it.
Oh, those contracts. I like them. They're both good players, but 10.8 for both. Brent Seabrook's extension is 7. And he's not the same Brent Seabrook a decade ago.
No, and they fell for that trap like we're winning, but at least they were honest with, you know what? We let our fan base fall in love and we got to watch the highs. They're going to continue to support that, but at least they were honest with them, with how they went about it. It's not like the Penguins where they're telling you you're trying to win, but you're not seeing results, and they keep messing up.
I mean, Detroit needs a goalie. Minnesota was looking into Murray. They're not sold on Dubnyk or Alex Stalock.
If I was any team with Murray, because I believe Murray's the guy that's going to go, and he should be the guy that goes, I if I was Chicago, I'd be looking out because Corey Schneider's gone after this year.
Crawford's not going to be the same.
Edmonton,
Edmonton is a pick.
or you can try if Calgary wants to go for him because they have a defense that can play in front of him. He needs a team that clearly just has confidence and can play in front of him. I don't believe the guy can be the guy that steals it for you. I just don't.
I like the teams you pick, but my question then becomes, for us Penguin fans here, what is your asking price in return? I mean, there's so many names that I could list right off the top of my head that need a goalie, and some of them. One of the teams this is the shocker. San Jose's looking to move Martin Jones, and they had interested in Murray. So how are you going to dump Martin Jones at his 5.6 cap hit for Murray? I understand he's younger, but how are you going to dump Jones, get nothing in return, and then get Murray? What are you going to offer the Penguins that will entice them?
They don't have anything that you could entice us with. I mean, if
Sharks?
you wanted to try to get Thomas Hertl, but the thing is that's
the only thing I would
that's
do
all
with
hearsay. That you just have to. How I look at it when you're making moves, does the team actually need them? And let the compensation just come around in some sort of way.
You brought up an interesting point with San Jose, so I'm going to ask you this just because we're here. With San Jose, for example, would you be opposed to moving Letang and Murray for Brent Burns? That's a right-handed shooting defenseman.
I would be in heaven, and I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't think the Penguins would.
I mean, Letang and Burns, I understand, are the same age and they have the same cap hit, but still, Brent Burns.
Yeah, but Brent Burns, again, can play right wing for you.
You know what he also does? And I didn't know this a couple seasons ago. 353 shots on goal. Yep. He runs the power play.
Yep.
And this is something I want to – we didn't get to address this, so I'm going to ask. When in the playoffs, Letang couldn't run the power play, Schultz couldn't. Why couldn't John Marino? That drives me nuts.
I questioned it too. I didn't understand it. Again, Recchi was with his power play. He was pretty much playing how it was in the old days with no movement.
And it doesn't.
We're gonna go with two defensemen up top with the point. And then we're gonna have a guy on the half wall down low that's gonna transition in, and then we have one person on the other side of it. That doesn't work. You need to move it around.
Right, I agree. I don't mind the diamond formation if you do it, and then you put a guy in the high bumper like Washington's with Oshie or Boston's with Bergeron. But
it was just so still. I can't stand it, and honestly, feel like I've been watching the same power play since Crosby and Ryan Whitney.
Yeah.
All those years ago. I just feel like it never changed, but we were lucky that we had Gonchar who knew how to get shots through.
I mean,
but it's just.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It'll be real interesting, but yeah, I'd be in heaven if we were able to trade Murray and Letang for Brett Burns, and that's something that has crossed my mind. I just don't know if a team like San Jose would do it, but if they were able to trade Martin Jones for a third-round pick, because that's the thing, you could overlap trades. If you get a guy and you're able to sign him, that frees them up to trade this and get an asset back, plus you got Letang. I really like the idea. And I actually love the idea, and I wish it would happen. But it sounds like a video type trade that unfortunately just would never happen for us.
Right. I mean, like Ottawa's looking for a goalie, and they offered us a first. That was the enticing part. Now the question is, I know if it's either one of the third or the fifth overall, I'm absolutely gonna just walk out of my house and just do laps around all of Whitehall. But
would you go give GMJR a hug?
I would, if he took that trade. Yes, I would. I would take back everything I said because he's getting a top 5 pick. We have not had that since Jordan Staal.
You'd personally pick him up, sit him down gently on a nice chair, and shine his shoes.
Last top 5 pick we had was Jordan Staal. That was 2006. I mean, we're looking at a decade and a half.
And we've been fortunate. It's just
we've got nothing in the cupboards. You want to have something now.
I will be intrigued to see what happens with Matt Murray and how it goes down.
I agree. Minnesota, Los Angeles.
There's a lot of teams that need a goalie, but there's a lot of goalies out there. It's just about, are they outbuilding themselves for a particular goalie? Where are they currently as a team? And what is Murray actually asking? Because is he worth the compensation? Because if he's saying, I want $6 million, but you're able to sign Holtby for, let's just say $6 million, or Lander for $6 million, you're going to go that route and not get the compensation.
Because you're not giving up an asset, which I absolutely understand.
But there's certain teams, and how I talk about building the spine, that's how you can build the spine.
Right.
And don't forget about the Rangers with they have those 2 young goalies there. And
Alex Gregoriev and Igor, whatever his name, I forget his name.
Yeah, but they have 2 young goalies that you can easily trade and say, and that's a team like the Red Wings or Ottawa should be looking at, because they're not coming up just yet. They're not contending. Murray needs to go to a contender. In my opinion, that's the team that would give up the compensation for a player like Murray is the Calgary, Edmonton, Chicago. Chicago's not completely dead in the water.
I don't think Minnesota is either, for say. The only reason why I threw Los Angeles and Detroit in there, and even Buffalo technically, I'll spit something out. Well, Jonathan Quick is what he used to be.
No.
He was a great goalie. And he by all rights, he's going to have his number retired in Los Angeles, but he's not the same guy.
No.
You want Murray to take over for him. He can help jumpstart that rebuild. I know Los Angeles is still rebuilding. They have some young pieces that could come over right now.
Yeah.
They
do.
Like Edmonton, the only thing I would say that entices me is maybe Oscar Kleppbaum or Nuge.
Allegedly, and I have an inside source on it. He's the only inside source that I have that when it comes to the Penguins, but I trust him because his dad works for the Penguins. Well, did. But anyways, the Canes offered us Jonathan Quick and Tyler Toffoli for Matt Murray and Jack Johnson last year.
I'm not surprised why they said no, because Jonathan Quick, that's $5.6 million.
Who is going to be an free agent after this year, but you would have had someone in here that could teach Jari.
So you would have had Pearson again for nothing. You would have traded
Toffoli. You would have got Toffoli.
That's another right winger. That's a winger that could play either side. You could move him up and down the lineup.
That was the trade that I was hoping we would make at the deadline, and then we went and got Zucker, and then I knew it was pretty much under the water because Toffoli got traded.
Right. I mean, the other thing I thought about, and I'll pedal to Detroit for a minute because I know they're not going to be competing, but would they be willing to move one of Bertuzzi or Mantha? That's a power forward the Penguins could use.
If they got Murray, you could maybe pry one of them, and I'd be in heaven if you did. If I'm Detroit, I'm figuring out what we have without giving up assets because that's how Yzerman's going to build it, is by keeping his assets and figuring it out. And then once a player is expendable, like a Mantha or Larkin or Bertuzzi, that's when he'll trade them when he's like, all right, I'm going to get a first or second round pick for this guy, and I have a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds in the AHL. They're going to be coming up that are going to be able to play it.
Right. Ottawa, if you're giving us like Chris Tierney, a prospect in a late in San Jose, or not San Jose, I forget, they have a late first. The only reason I wouldn't mind is because there's your third line center.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. You get a prospect, which is nice. So you get two things that help you, but then you get a third line center.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no pressure. That means you can move Bukestad. I mean, let's say Buffalo for a minute. They're talking about Murray for Ristolainen. That's a right-handed version of Jack Johnson. I don't want any part of Ristolainen. If you're saying maybe Jake McCabe and Victor Olofsson, okay, you get a top-line winger and you get a bottom six defenseman, that's fine. I don't mind that. You add depth. The only other thing I could think of, not to cut you off, if you're going to move him to Chicago, I want Kubalik. Then that's why I don't move him to Chicago. What else do you have? Brandon Saad's not the same Brandon Saad.
No, sorry, Saad. I love you. I've known you since you were a little kid. Sorry, man.
The Wild are the most interesting team. You're going to get our first. So from the Zucker trade, Matt Dumba is a restricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken. Brodin is going to be walking soon.
There's a lot of it.
You're going to lose one of them too, if not both.
There's a lot of interchangeables that you could possibly get from Murray. It's just about what's going to be offered because we just don't know. And and we can speculate and hope,
right?
But the thing is we just don't know what these teams are going to give. Because I would like to believe that if we gave Buffalo, let's just say, if we would have had our first, this is something that I love to play pretend with, and playing pretend's a lot of fun. But I would have loved to have seen us give up our first, Letang, and Murray, and maybe even another first for Jack Eichel. But the thing is like, it just, unfortunately, it just won't come to fruition. And all we can do is just speculate. Like, the moves make sense, but it also has to make sense for the other organizations.
Here's the other question. I mean, you said Calgary a few minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
What does Calgary have off? Like, do we want a 28-year-old Johnny Hockey? You have him for 2 seasons. Like, are you going to overload on Murray to get?
Let me tell you this right now: if we were able to get Johnny Hockey and we gave them, let's just say Murray and I'll say it, Murray and like Zucker for Johnny Hockey, I would do it in a second because I'm a fanboy of Johnny Hockey. And that's what also comes into it. Like, you could probably get not more, but you got to be able to fit certain things. And I do believe that Murray will be gone. It's just about what is going to be the return. It's not going to be like it was 3 years ago when his value was through the roof and teams would have been, every single team other than a select few would be jumping on him.
I want to say, actually, we're at the trade deadline here as far as this topic is concerned. I feel like we've only really mentioned Murray, and we went straight into all potential trade options you can do for just Murray. So, Murray, I think you're gone. Sorry to say. You probably wanted to leave anyway, so at least it's mutual.
He needs a fresh start, and he deserves a fresh start. He should not have been the villain here. It's just unfortunate that Vegas got a hockey team, and you keep the younger guy. I understand that point. It's the side of business because that's how we were able to re-sign Dumoulin. We were able to re-sign Schultz. I absolutely understand that. But the fact that now, 3 seasons, the first 2 seasons he got hurt. This is the first season where he didn't get hurt, but his numbers were not that great. Mm-hmm. So there's a problem. He didn't play bad in the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. We can't score goals. But the regular season, I stand when people say, well, Fleury's not that good. He made sure we got to the playoffs. Now, Matt Murray isn't good in the regular season. Then he's decent in the playoffs. So now that's reversed. Without the regular season, there's no playoffs. That's what I stand by.
That's the truth.
And for people to say Marc-Andre Fleury isn't good anymore, okay, he's not what he used to be.
He played tonight.
And his play can be erratic, but so is Murray's. Any other goalie's play can be erratic.
He played tonight and only gave up 1 goal, and they lost 1-0. Vegas.
Wow. So there's your update.
Dallas is up 1-0.
Yeah, Dallas is up 1-0 in the series. And Dallas only won 1-0 in that game. So Fleury only let up 1 goal. I'm sure these guys are going to be checking the highlights on that, without a doubt. So we know about Murray a lot now. Do we touch upon Jarry at all, though?
He's not going anywhere. If he goes somewhere...
I mean, besides whether he's going anywhere or anything you have to say about his abilities or performance, just quick things. It became all Murray and then, what you can get for him.
It's just because Toon and I just realized the situation for what it is.
Yeah.
Jarry is...
He's Fleury's
funny.
He's Fleury's successor. He comes up. The team plays differently around him. Like when you're watching the Penguins, I even noticed that. The players are more laid back. They're more relaxed. Jarry's like, I got this. With Murray, they're all collapsing, and the puck still gives them that. Jack Johnson's knocking guys into Matt Murray, which that isn't Murray's fault, but he does it to Jarry too. But then
at least he's consistent. Johnson's consistent.
But one makes the save and one doesn't. That's what baffles me. And I get the argument is, well, Jack Johnson's knocking guys into the goal. Yeah, I understand that. Don't get me wrong. But why is one goalie making a save, the other one's not?
Jarry, to me, has all the potential of being a goaltender that we have not seen in our lifetime. He's going to play a different style than what Fleury did. He's going to play a better style than what Murray did. Jarry right now is almost at the point where Matt Murray was in 2016. He's actually a little bit better than that at this point in time, and you're able to win with Murray. He's got a better glove hand. His rebound control is good. He's very good as a butterfly goalie. He's going to be a different style. Like, I don't like to compare guys to all-time greats like Lundqvist and Quicks and stuff like that, but his rebound control, his puck moving, and his glove hand is very good for a young guy. And I'm going to sort of kill the argument, but it's like he's like a young Rick DiPietro in a sense. When DiPietro was on his way up and had all the intangibles, it's what he has right now. I believe that Jarry's going to be different. He's going to be a complete different style than what we've seen.
He's also going to be cheaper. I
can't
wait to see that contract.
And I don't want to say you were actually technically killing the argument. I think you're just trying to make an analogy so people can kind of understand what he might be like. You're not really comparing so much.
No, I don't like to compare unless I feel like I'm spot on. I can't think of a goalie that I'm like, Jarry. that Jari reminds me of, because I don't want to compare him to an all-time great, because that's just not
Well,
fair.
yeah, of course, it's definitely not fair, and it might not even be accurate. Like you said, you're trying to say, okay, Pietro, kind of plays like this, seems like this, acts like this, and we might see similar tendencies from Jari in their play style.
Yeah,
not their numbers, not this or that.
I
Like,
think
you're just trying to give people
I think
familiarity.
Jari has the chance to be our first shutdown goalie that we've ever seen. That's probably the best way to put it.
He was top 10 in save percentage and in GAA right before the All-Star break, and he was still there, top 20 easy.
Yeah,
I mean, that says something. He gives them a chance to win. Like, when I went to a game against Calgary, and Johnny Hockey's got a breakaway, and there's, like, no panic from him. It's unreal. Matt Murray, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, it's going glove side. I mean, Matt Murray's a very good goalie. I'm not going to discredit him for that. But with his father's passing, he has not psychologically been the same. So he needs some form of help. But I would also say he's also run out of chances. And if Mike Sullivan, I get why he started game one. Jari should have started two. Matt Murray won us game two. That's fine. But then the next game, yes, we blew a 3-1 lead.
Yep.
But that's where
that should never happen on a caliber of a Penguins team that has a lead playoff tested like they did. That fell on the players and the coach more than it fell on Murray. Like I said, Murray never played poorly.
No, he didn't.
But I felt like he never fully won us a game.
I wonder
in this sense.
Would you say the series would be different if we started Jari?
No.
I mean,
You think yes?
I'd say so.
Okay.
Because if let's say Jari falls and you get Matt Murray coming back, he needs the competition. That gives him something to look. He needs the focus, because now he's saying, "Oh, I'm sitting on the bench." Now all of a sudden,
you bring up a great point, but this is the ultimate component, X factor, however you want to look at the dominator. 13 goals the past two playoff.
Right. I understand
seasons.
the offense.
13 in 8 games.
Oh, I know it's face palming. Don't get me wrong.
Where would the goalie in that situation make the difference? Because they weren't giving up a ton other than the 3-1 lead when we blew it. It fell on the players more than it did with the goalie. I believe that because of the way that they played in Game 4, not to lose it.
Yeah,
they didn't stand a chance. That was the whole argument in the whole.
The goal they gave up in that game was so bad because it went off a broken stick. But Brandon Tanev knows better to get the puck out of the zone right away. If you have to ice it, just ice it. Don't be cute in your own zone.
But
you're never cute with the puck.
They let Carey Price get in their heads that he's this great goalie, and he's not.
He's a good goalie. He's never had a team in front of him. That's what I give him. I won't say he's overrated, but I don't think he's amazing. I think do I think he's a top 5 goalie right now? I'd say arguably, because he's no team in front of him. Like, I'm not saying he's better than Vasilevsky. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say he's better than Ben Bishop, for example. But not Connor Hellebuyck I like.
I bet you if you were to write in the past 5 years of all the goaltenders, I bet you Carey Price would be closer to 10 than he would be 5 for you. I'm not like calling it out or anything like that. I just feel like the media was like, "Oh, Carey Price, he can steal games and stuff like that."
Yeah, they're beefing, they're sizing him up, and then because I know Montreal's roster,
but that team is so weak on the forwards and on the defense relatively that we should have been pressuring him the whole game and peppering him.
I mean, I like Petrie, I like Weber, I like Domi, and I like Gallagher. That's about it. Like, Philip Daniel is not a first-line center.
No.
I get that. That's where I look at Sullivan and say, when do you learn to make adjustments, too? I mean, I understand the players have to perform, but Sullivan is the head coach. You got to make decisions.
That team should have been averaging 3 goals a game against Montreal.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, definitely. Well,
I mean, I definitely will say Tristan Jarry is going to – I would say he's going to get the deal Matt Murray got. 3 years, $9 million.
Okay.
I don't see him getting moved unless you're getting a king's ransom. And goalies aren't going to bring –
I don't think any team wants to give up a whole king's ransom.
Unless it's a team that needs a goalie and they're starting to compete, because then, he's going to get a bridge deal. You're not going to sign him for that much. That's where Jarry has an advantage. Matt Murray, if he thinks he's getting $7-8 million, I'd say whichever team is signing him, good luck. I mean, if he gets 5 or 6, absolutely.
Mhm.
Jari's not going to get that much. He's going to get a bridge deal. That's why I would say he has the higher value. Matt Murray has more experience, but his offer, like what he's looking for, that's going to frighten teams away.
Yeah.
His age isn't. Don't get me wrong, but what's 6-7 million compared to 2.5 to 3? Tristan Jari's, I think, a couple months older. He's also
Jarry-
more athletic. That's where I think he has the advantage too.
I would not be surprised if you see them offer Jari like $4.5 million for 8 years.
So you think give him the Victor Arvidsson contract 4x7?
Give them something that it's like, you know what, this is a bridge deal for sure, but you're also getting consistency through it. I would not be surprised to see the Penguins pull something like that.
That's why I said they should give him the Matt Murray contract when Murray first came up. You give him 3.
But you fall back into the situation where he's proven himself and he may be able to get more. You don't want to do that. Granted, Crosby, Malkin, and everything will be gone.
Right.
But you have a chance, I think, to just lock the guy up.
I mean, I originally said Jared McCann should get the Victor Arvidsson deal, 7 years, $4 million. I'd say maybe give him 1 year, $2.5, $3 million, see what he can do. Say, this is your prove me contract right now. You know, we won't trade you, but we'll give you 1 year, and then you'll get another one, which really I think would benefit both sides.
Yeah.
And I want to say that, history might not repeat itself just because you try to give Jari the Murray contract. We could be talking about a difference in mentality here. I mean, obviously, where something happened to Matt Murray doesn't mean it may occur to Jari.
I think,
but then again, I understand your reasoning to not try and play with fire. Burned once, twice shy.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
mean,
I think everybody's saying DeSmith is going to be the backup goalie. I think Jari needs a veteran presence to still continue to teach him because he's still raw. He just has that look and that potential of being a shutdown guy.
Yourself a lock. No, I'm kidding.
I'm just saying, bring in a guy for $1.5, $2 million, and I think you could really see some magic like happen in a way because he still needs to learn tricks of the trade.
Right.
And,
I mean, that's the question I have is what backup goalie like is there right now that's been around the league long enough? I mean, the only two I can think of, if I would take him,
threw that out really fast.
I would take him depending upon if he's still under contract with.
He's unrestricted.
Oh, cool.
And, I mean, he's 37 right now, but the thing is Craig Anderson can come in and play.
He's one of those guys that can steal games out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice.
There's plenty. Jimmy Howard's like one of them if he's unrestricted.
Cam Talbot's another one. That's a wild card. He fell off the face of the earth in Edmonton, then goes to Calgary, and looks like he's back to normal. That doesn't mean I'm going to say he fully is back to normal.
Yeah, I mean, players are going to get paid a little bit more, but I'm just saying a backup goaltender you need with Jari.
Oh, I agree. Backup goaltenders do have meaning and they have value. I agree. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll be straight with you. I wanted Khudobin a while ago, and when he went to Dallas, I was like, really?
Let me put it this way. I don't want the Penguins to do what Montreal just did and go and pay or trade for Jake Allen when you have Carey Price for $4 million and he's 29 years old. That's a waste.
I mean, Keith Kincaid signed in Montreal and then got bought out. He went to the minors. He's a guy that I wouldn't mind having.
He's solid. But what about, like, I can't think of off the top of my head again. I don't want to speculate of things.
Thomas Greiss was another.
I feel like if people are watching, they know like the type of moves I'm talking about.
I'll tell you what. How about Thomas Greiss? He's a free agent, and I know he played it before, but that was under Mike Johnston. That was one season.
We're not going to be able to afford Thomas Greiss. I don't want to. I don't want to invest more than $6 million in backup, or not backup, but like starting in backup.
Here's the thing:
goaltender.
Greiss might be.
I think Tristan Jari will get about $4 million. So therefore, you have about $2 million to work with, and I think you can get a veteran guy in here for that kind of price. Is what I'm stating.
My question is: if Greiss is a free agent, does he deserve to have a chance to start? And if so,
someone will pay him.
What other goalies are going to be in front of him?
I just think someone will pay him. I just think there's guys that would maybe be like, you know what, I have a chance to win here on a veteran, and I'll play for $2 million because I know I'm only going to play about 35 games a year.
I would have taken Jonathan Bernier before he went to Detroit. I mean, it's just a stopgap just to have someone there. I mean, I don't mind Casey DeSmith coming up here because he's cheap, but
I would love Jonathan Bernier if you can get him. I would also love like Jonathan Quick if he wanted to sign cheap, but I think he retires a King.
I'm the same way with that one.
But Mike Smith, if he was unrestricted, like I'm talking older, like
35, 36.
An older guy that's able to come in, has made his money, will sign cheaper, knowing that he has a chance to win, and then on top of that, be able to teach Jari. That's the stuff that's invaluable. Or you bring in Patrick Waugh, and then you don't need to bring in a veteran guy. And Patrick Waugh's like, listen, numbnuts, this is what you're doing wrong.
Fair. I mean, I'll tell you, I wanted Ulf Samuelsson for a defensive coach.
All right, well, any last things you want to say to Jari? Kind of like how you did for Sullivan, maybe you said about Murray, you know? Hey, any uplifting words you want to tell right to Jari?
Jari, I bought your autograph for $35, but at 8x10. Please make it worth something.
Oh,
you're the future of the Penguins. I can't wait to see you starting next year in that Penguin jersey.
35.
All right. Well, as a slight aside, and just to kind of have some fun and, you know, jokes about it, right now I kind of want to stir the flower pot in a similar fashion that Mark Madden did here on our radio stations here in Pittsburgh, mostly because he brought it up, and I thought it was kind of funny. Mark Madden said, what if, you know, Fleury comes back to this town, especially because there was that debacle with the agent posting the sword piercing through Fleury. And the agent was doing that to kind of shout out against the Vegas coach for benching Fleury, like, you're backstabbing him, you're treating him wrong. So, granted, like I said, that's like an impossibility, but it's one of those fun what ifs. Anything you want to say about the whole Mark Madden, Fleury comes back to town thing?
Let Toon go first, but Toon, can I use your bathroom real quick?
Yep.
Where is it?
Upstairs.
Right upstairs.
Thank you.
All right, Toon, tell us, what do you want to say about Mark Madden, his, stirring the flower pot?
I get why he did it. I understand. Marc-Andre Fleury is a beloved figure in this town. He and Ben Roethlisberger are the two most scrutinized athletes in this city. Every time they make a mistake, they're in trouble. They're the scapegoat. They're the villain. It's kind of like why I don't agree with Matt Murray being the villain. Mm-hmm. All he did was come in and he played. I can't take that away from him. I wouldn't. Do I wish things would have worked out better for him? Yeah, I don't believe he should be heckled because, he gives up 3 goals in a game in like 10 minutes. Yeah, when 2 of them aren't his fault and the one is a perfectly placed shot, what do you want him to do?
Yeah.
But I would say overall that ship sailed.
Yeah,
I get it.
The ship probably sailed, but this is more about the what ifs and the kind of the fun thinking about it. Just like
I know Mark Madden is just trying to troll everybody, saying, "Oh, we're going to move these guys for Fleury." Well, that means we're going to lose Jari.
And the only thing I want to bring up, since Madden brought up what if Fleury came back, I think it's a fair question to ask. How much do you think Fleury would even want to come back? Like, I think granted, Fleury had the great patience. He was featured in plenty of commercials, like say for Highmark and all that.
I think he would come back easy, but the problem with that is like I said, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, because he probably would come back pretty easily because he'll be there with people he knew and respected. He's got most of the locker room would be on his side. Yeah, he'd have to maybe put up with the fans again, but he got a standing ovation during his first reappearance at the PPG Paints Arena while wearing Vegas colors.
That's
so.
What I don't like.
It's not like he wouldn't it's not like he wouldn't have the red carpet rolled out for him for at least the first month or two before all the jeers came back.
That's why I hate when fans say, "Oh, Marc-Andre Fleury isn't good anymore." Well, what 5 cup appearances and 3 cups? I mean, if you're gonna say stats, okay, so. Let's talk about
the guy wins.
We'll talk about stats, and then we'll talk about performance.
I mean,
Matt Murray's not gotten past the second round of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm on record saying Pens would never get out of the second round with Matt Murray as your starting goaltender.
And this is year 3, and it hasn't happened.
But stirring that flower pot, and I don't know in exactly what way Mark Madden stirred it up, but I want to go with the hypothetical. Okay, Fleury's going to come back to town. What did we have to possibly give up for that to happen? What do you think? What do you think has to move to make something like that occur?
Rutherford?
He would have to be bought out, which is possible if if they re-sign Lehner, they would buy him out, and then Fleury would have to sign here cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And
he wants to play still, probably.
Fleury wants to win. That's what Fleury cares about, is winning. Is it possible? Yes. Do I think it's a probability of anything?
No, probably not.
10%. Just because, we're all human, we're all greedy, we all want more money.
Well, yeah.
Fleury's a great guy, but if he has a chance to make his money still in Vegas and then make another $4 million double dip at his age, he's going to double dip.
Right. I mean, you can't blame the guy for wanting to earn more for his family.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when there comes a point where maybe you have enough And much as long as like certain people in the NFL stuck around as long as they did, they stick around usually for cheaper and cheaper because out of the love of the game, they kind of want to get that one extra win.
Hmm.
And that could very well be a thing that Fleury could be considering
Let me
or
put it this
would
way.
want to consider. I don't know. These are all what ifs at
Here's-
this point. This is all just the fun hypotheticals.
Let me put it this way: if Crosby, if Fleury was to get to another cup or win one, he could go down as a top 3 all-time goaltender when it comes to winning. No one can take away what he has done. Vegas going to the Stanley Cup with him
In their first year.
in their inaugural season. That's
The
unreal.
He played a huge part in that, and
Absolutely.
goaltenders get better with age, and he's on the decline of it. But the thing is if you were to tell me, because he's been to 5 cups now, 5 cups,
Winning
he
3.
was
23.
winning 3. If he was to get to 6, that's something that like Marty Brodeur didn't even do, Patrick Waugh didn't even do. It's very hard to do that, and the guy, I know why Mark Madden did it. I didn't hear the segment or anything because I was on
Same.
vacation. But he's about ratings. But the thing is there's a little bit of a realistic possibility that it could happen.
It's the slight, like you said, the slight percentage, the 1%, the glimmer in the eye.
But I would not be surprised, like how we keep on saying Murray needs to go to a contender. That's where Fleury will go. And I do think Fleury's going to get bought out. I don't think he's happy in Vegas anymore because I don't think he likes DeBoer, and DeBoer obviously doesn't like him, even though he started him tonight. Only 1 goal given up, by the way. Let's see what Lehner does when he gets benched. Next one. However, I could see him being the Colorado guy, getting bought out and then signing with Colorado for $3 million,
Maybe he goes
$3.5, $4 million.
Maybe he goes to Calgary. That was another pick, I thought.
It's all possible, and I love that you started the pod here, Alto.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too. I'm glad kind of Madden started that domino because it's just you can things that sound completely absurd. So,
Yeah,
I
and
agree with that.
unfortunately, probably is absurd, but it'd be enjoyable. I laugh when I look at my Facebook memories and I see myself tearing apart Fleury, but I remember a lot of those goals that he gave up, and they were always like point shots. And I'm like, God dang it, Fleury.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things you don't realize what you had until it's gone. And I started realizing what we had once Murray came up. I'm like, no, Fleury is this good. And that was an eye-opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I don't think Murray wasn't good. I just always felt like Fleury was the better guy when you look at intangibles of what they are doing back there. Tim keeps on talking about the confidence and everything. We had to play more defensively responsible with Murray in the 16 run than what we did when Fleury would be playing. And that helped, but it kept, like, Letang was able to pinch in, but everybody else stayed back.
Right. Well, all right then. That'll end it for stirring of the flower pot. I think it's effectively very thickly stirring and not shaken. And so with that, we'll just move on to the last little tidbits here for tonight. The off-season moves and signings for the Penguins. I mean, nothing's too much happened yet. I'm sure we'll mostly be talking about rumors, what sounds like could be moved, why it'll be moved, and maybe how you would grade that if it occurs. Maybe give it, an A through an E, give it like a school-style rating, maybe give it, a 1 through a 10, however you'd like. But have you heard of any rumors and why they're moving, why they could be moving that way, and what you'd grade it based on this rumor?
I mean, they're already at a 1 out of 10 off this trade that we just did.
Low starting point.
I don't see it getting better because of how strapped we are to the cap. The media has came out and said by multiple people we're not going to go to the cap, which sadly makes sense because they lost out on a lot of money because of the pandemic and everything.
Yeah.
So they don't want to go up because then they'll strap themselves the following season.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I think the Penguins are pretty much going to have to stay put to where they are at this point in time, and we're going to see the same results come next year because if it's broke and you don't fix it at all, you can't expect different results.
And if you don't have the means with which to fix it, I guess like you said, they're kind of handcuffed at this point.
You got some salary coming off, but it's going to have to go into the team. You have dead weight when it comes to Bustad for sure with the $4.5 million, I believe is what he's making. Tony and I disagree on Jack Johnson. Most Penguin fans do, but 3.5 at this point for what you're getting with Jack Johnson, all of a sudden you're talking about a lot of money. So,
I mean, if you move him, if you find a way to move him, I'm for it. I'm not saying you have to keep him. I'm not saying you have to move him. I'm just saying if you're going to keep him, you got to find another defensive, responsible defenseman to keep with him. You have to limit his minutes, and that's where I question Sullivan because he's not going to do it.
No,
I mean,
unfortunately, I'm one of those guys. Since you guys listen to Mark Madden, I believe that the window slams shut because I just don't see the right moves being made at this point.
I don't disagree with that. I haven't really seen a good move. Like, I don't mind the Zucker trade, but that's only because we got rid of Galchenyuk.
Yeah.
But what do you do with Bukestad? What are you going to move Johnson? And I know Rutherford comes out and says no, but Jim, we're up against the cap here, and you're talking about shopping Jared McCann. He plays all three forward positions. He's 23 to 24 years old. Why you don't think he's going to fit into your future plans? I would say you and Sullivan need to go get your heads examined. I don't believe Connor Sheary fits here, and you brought him back anyways.
No.
And he got one goal. One.
He's another one that's gone. He's like $3.5 million.
Yeah.
You have a lot of cap. I just don't think free agency is not how you want to build a Stanley Cup contender because you're not going to get the value of what you're looking for.
Like, I don't mind if they make going back to Murray versus Jari for a minute, you're gonna trade one of the goalies. That's where the big offseason move is going to be. But if you can find a way to dump one of Bukestad or Johnson with Murray or Jari, whichever one it is, that's where you get the win. The question is, what are you getting in return? Now, here's where I'm indifferent. If you move one of them, say with Jari, I know you're still gonna get more, just because Jari's more athletic and he's cheaper.
Yep.
Again, no matter what, you clear salary, which is nice. What do you get that comes back to help you now? We don't know. With Murray, you don't know what he's going to ask for. And
only what rumors are about what his agent said he's going to be worth, which we know is a lie.
The other one, and this happens every year, and I know I've said this 3 times today, Malkin and Letang get rumored, they get shopped every year. Which one of these two finally gets moved? I don't see Malkin moving. Letang's the one that can go, but do you find his successor or somebody else to help back up Marino on the right-handed side now, and then you move Letang? Or do you move him and then worry about that problem down the road? Because I don't want to move Letang unless you find someone else that's a right-handed defenseman not named Chad Ruhwedel. I don't trust him behind – I'm sorry, I don't trust him behind John Marino. I just don't. I can't see Ruhwedel playing top 4 minutes.
No.
Like, that's why you don't move Letang unless you're getting that right-handed defenseman somehow back first, or you're trading Letang to get a right-handed defenseman. This is the wild card I have. Bufflin's a free agent. He's pondering his retirement. If he plays, if Pittsburgh signs him for 1 year, that's where I could say you could trade Letang. That would be the wild card. Because then you're going to clear its salary. You're still moving a good asset. Technically, you're going to move Murray. You get whatever you can get for him. If you can get any picks and a player or two that can help you, those picks, oh, look, you have something in your cupboards now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other team this is shocking to me. The Leafs want to move on from Frederik Andersen, and they're interested in Murray. So my question now becomes, and just this is hypothetical, if Murray goes to Toronto, are we getting Hollander in the 15th back, or are you going to get something that helps you now, like William Nylander?
I think it would have to be Nylander, but Tim, what's more broke? Is it the forward depths? Because I think the Penguins need to transition to top 6 of just 1, 2, 3, like center, left, right, and have dominant there, and then just sign cheap that are just defense responsible and try to beat teams that way. Or is it the defense? Because you can't have both. You just can't with the salary the way it is. Which one's going to be more important?
I think it's defense, because when you trade Chris Letang, you have Marino, you have Dumoulin still. I don't mind Pettersson, but he struggled. But after that, I don't trust who we have. Like, people ran Ollie Mott out of town, and I get, he's slow, this and that, he's getting beat. So is Jack Johnson. But why are we keeping Johnson? I get Mata has more value, but you traded him for Dominic Cahoon, who you moved later. That's equivalent to Ryan Reeves. You overpaid for Reeves. You didn't overpay for Cahoon. You didn't get as much. I mean, you're saying he's a salary cap dump. Why? He's still a top 4 defenseman. Does he fit the system? Maybe. Okay, that's debatable, and I understand that. But Dominic Cahoon, yeah, he had terrible luck. He couldn't stay healthy. Right when he gets healthy, he says, "I'm going to sit out this game against Washington because I don't want to take the chance of getting injured. I don't want to risk it." He got moved for that. Like, that's where I, as a fan, I say, Rutherford, you're losing your marbles. You bring back Connor Sherry again, and he still can't hit the broadside of a barn, and he's getting top 6 minutes. That can't happen. No. I don't care that, he's played here, he's excited. That's fine. But you keep him in the bottom 6 if he's not scoring. I get no one expected Jake Gensel to be out for how long, but then at the same time, you got Zucker, you got Marlowe. Sam Lafferty looked really good in game 3. Yeah. And that was the only game he played. In preseason, he dinks around 3 guys, and he scores a goal. But Connor Sherry's getting top 6 minutes. This is where I question Mike Sullivan. Sam Lafferty wants to play. Connor Sherry stinks. He can't come back. Here's the worst part of this. If you don't re-sign Sherry, you lost out on that entire sequence of trades. Because Evan Rodriguez went to Toronto. If you don't bring Sherry back, you traded everything away there and got nothing.
Yep.
It doesn't matter about salary because Sherry was a free agent anyways.
Yep.
You gave up 2 assets. And with Cahoon,
sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Well, with Cahoon, you got a 5th. The only thing I liked about that is it helped get you Nathan LeGuin. That was the only thing. And great, him and Poulin, I want to see them up here. But
they need to be up here next year.
If they're not,
but where are they going to fit? Is my question. Where are they going to fit? The more alarming thing is the defense. It's not the forwards, and I want Poulin up here.
I don't think. I'm with you. The wild card for the defense, Pierre-Olivier Joseph's going to be up here. There's no way he's not.
I hope POJ is.
He has to be up here. I mean, you have Letang doing one. You have Marina Pettersson. That means POJ is going to play with Rueder or Johnson. I mean, Riccola's back too. I mean, that's why I don't mind losing a guy like Johnson. I don't even mind trading Pettersson right now because you can still run Ricola and POJ. I mean, you're saving salary.
Pettersson's cheap though.
I understand that, but Ricola and POJ don't make anything. Pettersson, I like his contract, but if we're going to find a way to save salary and Letang doesn't go, you got to move somebody else.
I just feel like it's going to be the same thing. We'll be having this conversation next year, other than Sullivan will be fired, and
we'll high-five each other long distance.
Sounds good to me. I just think it's going to be the same story again.
I agree. I will say a funny story happened between us. I said to him the 1 week right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Mike Babcock's getting fired from Toronto. He tells me the day before Thanksgiving, Babcock got fired. A week.
I remember that. Yeah.
Like 2 weeks later, I said somebody else is going to get fired right before Christmas. There goes Pete DeBoer, San Jose. Yep. I was like, everybody's going. I saw it coming. 5 coaches got fired right before Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Like, coaches are the scapegoats, but their systems don't work at times. And the players want a new voice in that room. I
actually saw Pete DeBoer's final game against with San Jose because he played the Pens. Pens always seem to get a coach fired.
Yep. Shelterian, like
well, if you're worth your salt as a coach, then you might be able to hang with the Penguins for a little while. I mean, you get to put that on your resume if you're going to go coach another team. I coached the Penguins.
I mean, the other coach I wanted to see maybe the Penguins go after was Lindy Ruff before he went to New Jersey. That wasn't a bad idea either.
Ruff has been around a long time, but I just feel like Trotz
was the guy.
People like him because Buffalo's stuck with him, but really, the guy just choked.
He's on Team Canada, and that's the only reason why you're a head name. Like, great. When 12 of your 14 forwards are all centers, I'm hoping you're going to win too. I mean, you had Price, Holtby, and Fleury. That was an interesting goaltending trio.
Yeah, I mean,
like Weber, Doughty, Pietrangelo on the right side.
Like, I love the Olympics. I wish hockey players, professionals were allowed to play in it again.
They're actually going to.
Good.
2022. That extended.
realistically, Canada at no point in time in the near future is going to be beat. It's not going to happen.
Every 12 of their 14 forwards play center. That's a problem for every other team. The only thing I'd say now, where USA will give them a challenge, you have Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel. You finally have some centers that can go up against guys like McDavid or Crosby. But then you're still going to see Bergeron or Jonathan Taves or Nathan McKinnon.
Taves and Bergeron won't be there. We'll be lucky if Crosby still is. They'll probably take Crosby just for the veteran. But it's just, to me, the rest of the world is just so behind Canada's like all-star talent. Russia isn't what they were. They had their window.
Yep.
And that's shut. Sweden's done. Slovakia lost Gabrick, Hossa, Chara.
Marian Gabrick's always a player I wanted the Penguins to get.
You know how I feel about him.
There was a year where I thought...
If you guys are wondering, he's a top 3 all-time player for me, non-Penguin.
I remember years ago, I was thinking, you could have given up assets to get Gabrick to put with Crosby.
He was traded to the Canes for a second-round pick.
I mean, he went to New York and signed, then he got traded to Columbus, and then he went to the Kings.
Yep.
He did win a cup, but I'll tell you
He should have won Conn Smythe.
I agree. Who got it that year?
Justin Williams.
Oh, well, that's because he's Mr. Game 7.
Yeah, but...
I understand why, but still, Gabrick should have...
Gabrick had so many game time and game-winning goals in that playoff run.
I'll tell you what, one of the hockey games I have, I forget, his speed is so unreal. I'm looking at it, like, here's the center line. I hit up, and he's already at the net. I don't even blink. I'm like, how are you there already? And he's only 22 in the game. That's what I like. I'm like, wow, I'm putting you with like a 40-year-old Mario Lemieux, and you're up, you and him and Yager. It's like, nice.
It's always fun.
You do all the work.
Reminds me that one short story that was all about those thingamatrons. I forget, like they literally everything back in the old day in those short stories, everything was called something Tron, like you have Voltron or you have a Megatron. Everything was called a Tron. So like everything was all about. It kind of predicted like sports video games way back when in like the 70s, and it's like a short story. But that's kind of what that's reminding of. But hey, that's that slide aside. And speaking of pairing things together that are just from all over the place, I think moving away from just Pittsburgh now, just from our home team, we'll round it off now with the final point of the night being about just the league-wide offseason now. There's only 4 teams left playing in the finals. That means all the other teams are off right now either golfing and or setting up trade deals and prospect things and what they're going to do with their drafts and all that. What kind of all sorts of movements and signings that'll be going on for all the teams now. Is there any rumors you guys have heard about sort of movements or rumblings that might be occurring? Or do you guys have particular predictions you think of how things are going to move, in your own mind? Just forgetting rumors altogether. Take either point whichever direction you want, but league-wide off-season now, movement signings, predictions, anything.
It's hard for me to come up with a straight-up prediction other than what teams are going to do, but I think Toronto's going to realize that what they are doing is not working with paying all these forwards. I believe Nylander or Marner is moved because one of those two has to go. Unfortunately, Tavares, I don't think they would have the heart to do because he's the hometown guy. Although I will say I could see Toronto media running out Matthews out of Toronto because he's American. They hate when their captain.
They ran Phil Kessel out of town.
They hate when their captain, for the most part, is not Canadian. They love Matt Sundin, but they didn't win with him, and they were always hard on him. Mm-hmm. So my prediction, though, is more, and it's so early that you just
you can't really tell.
you have to see who's not signed and things like that and trades. There'll be a big move trade wise, but I think Toronto's going to move Nylander or Marner, and I would not be shocked if it's Marner, and he should not be the guy that goes.
Okay. Well, hey, how about Toon? You got another team or movement you think it's going to go?
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think Nylander goes. I think Freddie Anderson gets moved. He can't win Game 7s. He chokes in the playoffs. and the Maple Leafs are saying we want to try and upgrade. And I get that they're frustrated with that, but I will say in Frederik Anderson's defense, you had a chance to go out and get a right-handed shooting defenseman, a guy that can come in and play shutdown minutes to pair with Morgan Riley, and you went after John Tavares. That's not what you're supposed to do. Don't get me wrong. I understand why you signed John Tavares. You want your 1-2 punch. You had Kadri. You should have held on to Nazem Kadri. Go out and get a defenseman like John Klingberg. Then put him with Jake Muzzin. Then you go out and get another right-handed defenseman, like a shutdown guy, and have him play with Riley, and then that might solve your problems. I'm not saying they'll help you get past Boston, but you're identifying what your needs are. I believe Taylor Hall. He ends up in Calgary or Colorado. That's
a bold statement.
I don't. He said he wants to go to a contender. Colorado's the team. They get another piece. They're even deadlier.
What about Boston at that point if they don't re-sign Zadino?
Boston isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I like Bergeron, I like Marchand, I like McAvoy.
I'm just saying,
if they lose,
Zadino's, if he retires and they get that contract because he's unrestricted, that's a contending team that he could go to.
I thought of that.
Defense is already set.
I thought of that, but I also wonder what you're going to do with Torrey Krug, because you have to re-sign him, and he said he's not taking a discount to stay in Boston. So
I love Torrey Krug.
If he's serious about not taking a discount, Boston's going to sign him first, because you're going to lose Char at some point, no matter what. But can you afford to lose Torrey Krug and then be left with Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo?
No.
And Matt Grzelcyk?
No, that team would go. They wouldn't even be a playoff team possibly next year.
They'll score goals, they'll win games, but the defense will have a problem. That's why I think, if anything, Boston's not going to worry about Taylor Hall at the moment, unless you're going to find another way to move salary. That's why I picked Colorado. They don't really have bad contracts, which is nice. The one contract that I don't like is Jonas Donskoy, but you can move him somehow, which I think you can do. If Grubauer's a free agent and you let him walk, there's Taylor Hall. Make the power play more deadly than what it is.
Yeah, but then they go to the situation that they ran against Dallas.
That would be the only concern. But even then,
I would say you could have a bold move with this one, and the Rangers either buy out Lundqvist or somehow move him, retain a lot of his salary of whatever they're allowed.
I think they'll move him.
They'll have to hold on to a lot of salaries. I think he makes like $9 million a year.
You know what? I think they'll move Georgiev, actually.
They'll move. They're going to move one of their three goalies, but
agree.
It's just about who. So one of them's going to go, and if it's Lundqvist that goes, I could see him again going to a team that's going to contend that he's not going to have to play as much, but he could be a solid backup.
I'll tell you what, a wild card dark horse team that I think could use another goalie, Nashville. They were built to have three centers, and they struggled. Ryan Johansson's that trade didn't look bad when it went down, and now Ryan Johansson's not looking like he's that number 2 center.
No, they lost on that trade, I think.
Kyle Turris, he got his cap hit is 6, and he puts up 29 points and plays third line minutes.
Yeah,
that is bad.
Well, I think Nashville got their answer when they didn't play Rene and they kept Saros in.
And I think
that Saros isn't going to be the answer. They need to rebuild officially.
With the Penguins, see, I thought maybe, and this is what I thought. Maybe the Penguins trade Matt Murray straight up for Victor Arvidsson. You get a guy that can play either side of the wing and he can fly. He's fairly young. 7 years, $4 million cap hit. Then that way you get somebody that helps you now. Because I don't think they're going to.
That's something that you could easily do with Letang and Murray for Josie.
I don't picture one of Yossi or Ellis getting moved. Ekholm's the guy I would take. He's
probably not, but
it's something that I'm saying. I would love any one of them three. Ekholm is arguably the best shutdown defenseman in the league.
And also, now that you're talking about Patrick Laine gets traded.
Laine's gone. I agree with you. I would say he goes to Carolina for something like Brett Pesce and Vincent Trocheck. Winnipeg gets their second line center and a top right-handed pairing defenseman.
Yeah.
Carolina gets a goal scorer.
I think Laine needs to get out of there to get his career rejuvenated. He just looks like he's playing empty hockey.
I think Jack Eichel gets moved.
I don't think it's this year. I think it's next year. I think he's going to run himself out of Buffalo, but it's going to be after this year, like trade deadline or off season, is when Eichel will get traded.
I think he goes to New Jersey. I think it's going to be for
I don't think he would want to go to Jersey. He would
Right.
know that he's going to be equally as miserable as he is in Buffalo there.
Right, but I also think that's one of the only few teams that has a lot to offer. I mean, the only other team I could see ponying up something maybe, and again, this is the problem we run into. It's Colorado. They have a deep prospect pool. They don't really have bad contracts, but how badly do you want to handcuff yourself? But then you run McKinnon and Eichel right down the middle, and Kadri's your third line center like in Toronto.
It'd be nice. Like I said, I have a soft spot for Colorado.
I mean,
I think they need to get their goalie situation all figured out before they do any major move, because you can hinder your team at that point in time. And just
that was a team Matt Murray was interested, like I guess supposedly rumored to go to, and I thought, what are you going to offer the Penguins? And I hear Connor Timmins in a first. I mean, that says something. I don't mind that at all. No. I mean, can you get something else added? I mean, would they be willing to take on a contract? Say, we'll gladly hand you him right now. We'll even sign him for you, whatever you want. Because I don't know if you know this, when some teams will sign and trade players, so they'll sign them, their value's up because they're signed. They're under contract. So that team you're trading them to doesn't have to worry about them. So that's why sometimes signing a player then trading him, saying, here, we'll pay you now. We know it hasn't worked here. What team do you want to go to? Are you comfortable going here? This way we're not handcuffing you, and you got what you wanted.
I'm hoping that we trade like a third and Jack Johnson to Ottawa and just clearing. I'd rather give up a third-round pick and get Jack Johnson's contract off our books.
Right. I mean,
but
this is the better thing about this is next year when Seattle gets their team, we don't have to worry about losing guys like Rust or Gensel or Malkin or Crosby or Hornqvist or Zucker.
No.
I mean, now out of the 7 guy, if we're going 7 forwards and 3 defensemen, I'm protecting Teddy Bluger.
That's fair.
Because if Jared McCann's not around, I want the 4th line guy that wins faceoffs.
Yeah.
He kills penalties. He moves up and down the lineup. He does what he's supposed to do. They're not going to take Tanev in his 3.5 cap hit. I would say to them, we gave up a second for Vegas to take Fleury, I'd give you a second to take Jack Johnson.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but
Ron Francis is their GM, and I'm wondering, is he had trouble in Carolina? I can't believe they fired him, but I get why. He was afraid to make big trades, but I mean, we'll give you Rutherford and Sullivan. Does that count?
Well, his Francis and his big trades. The NHL when he was there was a lot different
right,
trades went than what it is now.
Right, I agree.
You don't see big names being involved in trades of 2 players for 2 players that just need senior analysis.
The last time I saw that was Hossa for Danny Heatley.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Danny Heatley was one heck of a player, but Marian Hossa, if he would have stayed in Pittsburgh, I guarantee you we don't have this problem.
It's
big what if.
Because then you don't have James Neal.
Yeah, but he also was gonna be winning $8 million. Right. I wanted Hossa, but Hossa's one of my all-time. I love Slovaks, guys. I like
Hossa.
I like players.
I like how Hossa and Gabrick and Char. I'm not gonna hide that.
But unfortunately, it just didn't happen. He said he wanted to play for a contender, and he went to Detroit, and I understood. But who knows where we would be now if we would have had Hossa. I feel like him and Crosby would have been magical.
I mean, Dupuis was the best part of that trade. He stayed here for how many years? He helped us win a cup. He was the heart and soul of the team until we got Hornqvist. And, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
They need another heart and soul guy. When you lose Hornqvist, you're in trouble. They averaged 3.51 goals with him, and when he's not in the lineup, it's 2.76. No one goes to the net.
Yep.
The next closest guy that'll do it is either Rust or Gensel. And that's something I want Sullivan to do. This year, please keep Gensel and Rust with Malkin. That line clicked the whole year. You have to, it stops. They come back, and they're split up again. Why? You could have just put Hornqvist and Zucker with Crosby. Zucker's the sniper / two-way forward, and Hornqvist goes to the net.
Unfortunately, and this goes into not having any marbles, but the main media source that I will listen to a lot of times is Madden. and he says Crosby doesn't like playing with him. But the thing is, if you're getting results, no offense, Cros, but it's helping the team, and Crosby's a team guy.
Yeah, you might have to just bite the bullet then.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And it seems like he kind of does.
I mean, I don't mind him playing like Zucker and Simone for a minute. Just, example. Because at least I know Dominic Simone's not going to do something completely dumb where I have to look at him and say, why'd you turn the puck over?
Yeah, he just missed open nets. That's all.
I'd rather him miss the open net. I'd rather him not score goals, but then he'd be solid defensively. Then Connor Sheary missed the net completely, and then he's invisible the rest of the game.
Yes.
That is my argument there. Like, Dominic Simone actually is not a bad player. Now it's unfortunate he's out 6-7 months due to shoulder surgery. But I will say that's a guy that when he comes back, fourth line with Tanev and Bluger, let him start down there. That fourth line will shut down other top 6 lines. Why not? Give him a chance to get his, get going, get the arm working or the shoulder working a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying Hornquist has to go up and play in the top 6, but, if McCann's going to play with Hornquist, you have to keep him at left wing. You got to go get a third line center still. If Bukestad's still here and he can't stay healthy, that's a problem. That is a big concern.
Yeah,
I don't think
you got him here to be size and go to the net. And
I don't think I don't even think he's that bad as a centerman. It's just he can't stay healthy.
And that's unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to see what his true potential was as a Penguin fan. Because 6'6" for a center is just unreal.
So I will say that's one thing I will say about missing Jordan Stahl. He won faceoffs when he needed him to. I don't like his cap hit, and I don't think he's never going to be a 30-30 guy, but
no.
He wins faceoffs. I remember watching his where he's making John Tavares look invisible. I'm like, is John Tavares even in the arena? I mean, last year he drove Matt Barzal nuts, and Barzal took 8 penalties. That's what that's the thing I liked about Stahl. He's going to make top 6 guys look invisible. That's what your job as a third line center is. You come in, you're the checking center. Like, I'm not asking you to go put up 25 goals. Please come in, work on the defensive zone, get the puck out, win faceoffs. That's all you got to do.
Well, possession is always key, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the beginning of next year. But I will still say Anderson and one of Nylander and Marner's gone. If I'm Toronto, Mitch Marner's their most important player outside of Morgan Riley. I move Nylander.
I would too, but
I mean,
they may not get what they're looking for.
If you wanted me to be completely honest, I'd say move Austin Matthews.
Yeah,
and I would say, that defeats the purpose because you're moving one of your centers. But Mitch Marner plays in every position. Austin Matthews does not kill penalties. That's the advantage I give Marner.
Yeah.
I mean, Nylander will kill penalties at times, but I also think he gets moved.
I think Nylander is probably the most logical one, yes.
I think he goes to Dallas for Klingberg.
And with that, I think we end right where we began with that topic. With actually, how do you pronounce his name again? The guy I just mentioned, the N.
Nylander?
William Nylander?
Nylander, yeah. I'm talking about his movement and, Toronto and everything. So that sounds like all the movements that's going on league-wide outside of the Penguins. And, possible movements, prediction of signings. So
actually, I'll pick one more real quickly just because I think this team is – they're a head-scratcher. And we just talked about this. Nashville, they were a cup contender. And now all of a sudden they're gone. They're gone. Like, Matt Duchene comes in. He doesn't have a bad season. Forsberg, he's still a 30-goal scorer. Victor Arvidsson puts up 25-30. But what happens to their depth? Like, you know about Yossi, you know about Ryan Ellis.
That defense got old, and they don't have a goaltender. Remember how I talked about the spine? You have forwards that can do it, but you no longer have the defense.
Pecorino is not what he used to be, and UC Soros can't be trusted right now.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, I think that's a team that ends up missing playoffs next year because they just don't have –
I think the West is tougher to play.
And is there much that they could try to move or move forward?
The central alignment is actually worse to play in now than what it used to be. I stand by that because they're going to get Arizona when Seattle comes in.
I agree.
And that just became arguable because 5 teams made it out of the playoffs, I think, this year. I think that alignment it's deadly.
Yeah, I think there's just teams that are on the rise now, and they're on the decline. They had their moment.
Yep.
They had a few years of it, but I think it's over.
I mean,
we're going to find out if they're really the best fans in hockey.
Who, Nashville?
Yeah.
I mean, would you? I mean,
It is the best arena I've ever been to, though.
I'll ask.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'll ask outright. Would you do Matt Murray for Victor Arvidsson? Not just because Matt Murray's possibly going to be gone.
Yeah,
but
I love Arvidsson. I love his game.
Because I was thinking either one of him or Forsberg, or if you can get a defenseman like Ellis or Ekholm, and you can get something for you now that'll help.
Yeah. If you were able to pull it off, yeah, I would do that. I'm not even worried about the compensation. I love Arvidsson's game. I like Ekholm. I like Ellis. I love Yossi. I just don't know what they're going to do, but I think that's a team now that they're getting older.
They got to blow up that roster.
And they have a lot of holes now that they're just not going to be able to fill. They're no longer a contender to me that you could build.
No, they're going to run into Winnipeg, or they'll run into San Jose or Dallas.
Winnipeg's another team I think is done.
Them losing Bufflin and then not having a second-line center, because losing Brian Little hurt.
Yeah.
And I stand by. That's why, if I'm them, I trade Line, go get, like I said, Brett Pesce and Vincent Trocheck. That solves two of their problems right there.
They had their opportunity, man. It's one of those things. Unless you have great players like the Penguins did, your window really is only 3 to 5 years before it really starts to change, and you have to pay those guys because they weren't paying Laine and Scheifele and everything just like that, and they were deep.
I mean, right now, if I recall,
now you're paying Hellebuck
$6 million. I know you have Scheifele, you have Blake Wheeler, you have Kyle Connor, but
I think that team's. I just think they're also another team that's on the decline versus a team like, again, Vancouver. They're going to be good. Calgary, they're going to be good. It's like the Canadian teams are finally figuring out, all right, guys, this is how we're going to be good.
Calgary's the one team out west in Canada that makes me scratch my head. I like Sean Monahan, I like Johnny Hockey. I like Matthew Tkachuk. But what do you have around them after that? And I mean, Mark Giordano's 37, 38. He's not going to be playing as much. You're going to lose Travis Hamonic. You're losing TJ Brody. They're not the same guys.
No, they're not. But it's just one of those teams that I still think they're young enough that they're able to somewhat build in on it. They just never. I always say this fine. If you don't have a goaltender, you don't have anything. That is the single most important thing. You need to have 4 good defensemen, but if you do not have the 2 centers and the 1 shutdown defenseman and the goaltender, forget about it.
I mean, I'll ask you, just because we were talking about the Penguins making moves. Let's say we move Letang, would you be open to signing Travis Hamonic? I remember how much we hated him when he played for the Islanders, but he's that physical, nasty right-handed defenseman. And
depending on price. Depending on the price.
I mean, I have no problem with him getting in people's grills and saying like, no, you're not gonna give Jari a stone in the face.
That's the type of defenseman that we need. It just all depends on price.
I mean, that was a guy I wanted years ago. I remember going to a game and I think him and Derek Englund got into it, and in 3 seconds, Englund pops him in the jaw and he's out.
Huh.
He got into a fight with somebody else, and I forget who lit him up. Somebody lit up Franz Nielsen. Oh, Steve Downey. He lit up Franz Nielsen and Travis Hamonic and him get into a fight. And then Malkin scored like 2 seconds later. But point being is, like, Hamonic's he's that nasty guy you want in the, like
that's the type of player Depends need. And that's what's coming down to now.
I like Dupre when we had him because he was kind of the same way. He cleared the front. It's just he busted because he kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, I forgive Rutherford for trading him for Lovejoy because Lovejoy stunk. But we won a cup.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only reason he was good is because he got Brian Dumoulin for our partner.
Right.
If it wasn't for that, no, Rutherford, I don't like that move.
All right, well, I'm going to rein it in there. I think that, like I said before, that kind of centered around back to the Penguins when we were trying to talk about league-wide things. So I think
there's not a lot going on in the league.
There's only so much we can talk about, but, I mean, if anything, it shows to the enthusiasm for both the sport of hockey and, of course, our own home team here. So that finally concludes this, latest round of the 2019-2020 NHL playoffs. And right now, the conference finals are going on. So I'd say several games from now, from both pairings, we'll be talking about who won and lost that and who are the Stanley Cup contenders. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see how it all plays out. It's always exciting. These guys will have their eyes glued to every last stat going on during it.
Varlamov in the finals. I might throw up.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to lie. But, I mean, that would just show how good Barry Trotz's system is.
Yeah. So, with that, we want to thank you for stopping by and listening in. We'll make certain to post the predictions for the conference finals of both Cam and Toon here on Twitter. We'll let Toon handle that. We'll see how your predictions stack up, guys. Good luck.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cam, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.
I want to thank our special guest,
in
Cam.
the off season. So that means like a couple months from now, because hockey's not going to start till December, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
Ooh, not till December.
It was fun. I enjoyed this, guys. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's chat again real soon about hockey. Go hit that ice. It's always a great day for hockey. All right. Good night, guys. Take care. And hope to see you again real soon.
That lasted 3.5 hours.